Chapter 472. Yun Sheng's words were like a stone falling into the calm water, evoking the thoughts of everyone present. The masked female prisoner closed her eyes and no longer spoke. Yun Sheng sighed. Xian Mimi was still sitting at the side, sobbing softly. After Yun Sheng finished eating, she felt more comfortable. She leaned against the cold wall, which made her sleepy. Her mind was full of what Wuxia had said earlier. 10 years? Wuxia said that she had been locked up here for 10 years and had never had a chance to escape from Icefall City. The elves had mastered the demon sealing arrow, so it was almost impossible to escape from here. Was she also going to be locked up for an endless 10 years? 10 years, father, had she waited for 10 years? When Yun Sheng thought of this, her heart clenched. A few days passed in a flash. After that day, the masked female prisoner was still sitting alone in the corner of the ice prison. She had never spoken to anyone, but her attitude towards Yun Sheng was undoubtedly the best. Although she didn't say anything, her behavior made it clear that the little girl was under her protection. Yun Sheng was the first to take food and water, and the second was the masked female prisoner. The two didn't communicate directly, but they had a tacit understanding of each other. This was also a tacit agreement of the entire female prison. With the silent protection of the masked female prisoner, Wuxia's group didn't dare to do anything to Yun Sheng. Yun Sheng could receive an extra set of water and dry food every day. The days in the ice prison passed day and night. Yun Sheng could only count on the meals sent by the elves every day. The days passed. She engraved a stroke on the wall of the cell every day. In the blink of an eye, she had already written 3 Zheng characters. In other words, she had been imprisoned in Icefall City for 15 days. Counting the days, it was only a month away from the selection of the mainland's magic elite camp. The date agreed upon by Yun Sheng and Yi Baiming was also approaching day by day. During this period, the masked female prisoner was taken out and whipped again. This time it was even worse than the last time. As if there was a natural tacit understanding between them, Yun Sheng continued to use ice and snow to cool her down. The masked woman didn't thank Yun Sheng afterwards, but her attitude towards Yun Sheng was much better. Yun Sheng had also tried to contact Yi Baiming, but due to the demon sealing arrow she could not even meditate, let alone use her Dharma soul to resonate with him. If this continued, she would definitely miss the appointment. Night Fox would probably be angry. Yun Sheng sighed. She squatted in a corner with a sad face and used her fingers to rub the snow on the ground. She raised her eyes slightly and saw the masked female prisoner sitting in the corner like an ice sculpture. Other than the first time they met, when the other party was in a sorry state, the masked female prisoner was mostly clean and neat. Yun Sheng also later found out why Wuxia and the others forced the new prisoners to take off their clothes and boots. It turned out that they were all used to show filial respect to the masked female prisoner. The expensive magician's robe and boots that Xian Mimi had taken off earlier were now on the female prisoner. Xian Mimi was angry for a long time because of this. The masked female prisoner was combing her long hair with a small ice comb. She had the most beautiful long hair Yun Sheng had ever seen. The hair was very good, straight, smooth and silver white. This made Yun Sheng think of a good fox fur coat. Every prisoner who came in would be searched thoroughly. That ice comb was obviously not brought in from outside by the masked female prisoner. Senior? Yun Sheng asked boldly. You know how to sculpt ice? The ice comb was very exquisite. At a glance, it was obvious that it was hand-polished. The patterns on it were also very delicate. It was hard to tell that the masked female prisoner's hands could do such delicate handiwork other than killing people. The masked female prisoner's hand paused, as if she was considering whether to answer or not. Finally she spat out a word. Yes. Yun Sheng came closer. The masked female prisoner's body stiffened, but she still managed to resist the urge to throw Yun Sheng out. Yun Sheng had helped her treat her wounds twice. She had already let down her guard against Yun Sheng to a certain extent. Then can you teach me how to sculpt ice? Yun Sheng probed again. Yun Sheng wanted to sculpt a zither, an ice zither that would allow her to play the Dihong song. Her beast language ring and magic scepter were all taken away. Her Dharma soul was also restrained. Under such circumstances she thought of the Dihong song. Earlier Yi Baiming had said that Yun Sheng's Dihong song could only be played with a suitable zither. Yun Sheng had never found a suitable zither. But today when she saw the masked female prisoner's ice comb, she suddenly remembered that the ice and snow in the ice prison had accumulated for thousands of years. It was incomparably hard. If she could sculpt a 1,000-year-old ice zither, she would have a zither that she could use temporarily. The masked female prisoner actually agreed to Yun Sheng's suggestion. Although she did not directly agree, she nodded. The masked female prisoner's hands were indeed very skillful. Yunxing did as she said. She used the materials on the ground and chiseled a large piece of ice from the wall of the prison cell. She carefully polished the ice into an ice knife and began to sculpt the rough shape of the ice zither. The masked female prisoner still did not like to talk. She just watched from the side. If Yunxing did something wrong, she would correct her. The two of them, one guiding and the other sculpting, soon had a rough outline of the zither. At first, Xian Mimi was very disdainful of Yunxing's actions. But later she understood Yunxing's intentions. The days in the ice prison slowly passed by in the long sculpting. Ice sculpting was a craft that tested a person's patience and perseverance. Yunxing also unconsciously forgot that she was in the ice prison while sculpting. Those people and things in Zhou state were also temporarily forgotten by her. There was only one zither in her eyes. Now her only thought was to sculpt the ice zither as soon as possible and play the Dihong song as soon as possible. This way she might be able to reverse the situation of her being trapped. What Yunxing did not know was that during the days when she lost contact, Yi Baiming had already gone crazy. Within a month, Yi Baiming had tried to resonate his thoughts nearly 100 times. After failing without exception, Yi Baiming could no longer hold back. He was like a male beast on the verge of collapse, looking for a female beast that was alone. I need to go to the Immortal Residence Nation. Yi Baiming immediately found battle strength. Go to the Immortal Residence? Baiming, the examiner of the mainland's warriors' elite camp, is about to arrive at Yujing. This trip to the Immortal Residence will take at least a month. Battle Strength also knew that Yunxing had gone to the Immortal Residence Nation. He also knew that there was no news of Yunxing now. Battle Strength and the Yun residence had a deep relationship. Yunxing was also important to Wushuan Limitless School and Battle Strength himself. But this did not mean that Battle Strength would agree to Yi Baiming going to the Immortal Residence. If it was any other country on the mainland, Battle Strength would definitely agree. After all, Yi Baiming's strength was there. But the Immortal Residence Nation was different from other places on the mainland. The Immortal Residence Nation was not like any other place on the mainland. The elves were mysterious since ancient times and had mastered many skills that humans did not know. Chapter 473. If it was any other country, Yi Baiming could make use of his special spacetime magic to travel thousands of miles in a day. But the Immortal Residence country was very special. It was surrounded by special elven restrictions. Magic could not be used to enter the Immortal Residence country, and one had to pass through the Snow Forest Sea. There, the magic of any human would be restricted. Only those who had been baptized by the elves could survive in the Immortal Residence country. Even Yi Baiming's strength would be greatly reduced in the Immortal Residence country. It was too dangerous for him to go alone. I haven't heard from the little wild cat in a long time. Yi Baiming recalled the various legends of the Immortal Jew country. The most famous of them all was the Immortal Jew's Snow Forest Sea. It was rumored that no one who entered the Snow Forest Sea had ever successfully left. Just as Yi Baiming and Zhan Li were in a deadlock, a warrior guarding the entrance of the martial arts hall delivered a message. Senior Brother Yi, someone just delivered a message at the entrance of the martial arts hall. That person told me to tell you that if you want to know Elder Yun's whereabouts, you have to go to the Thousand Snow Pavilion in the city alone at midnight. He said that he has news of Elder Yun's whereabouts. That person also specifically said that you have to go alone. Otherwise, don't even think about getting any information. The warrior said. The person who delivered the message was wearing a bamboo hat. He was neither tall nor short. From his accent, it was hard to tell if he was male or female. Little Wildcat's whereabouts? Yi Baiming could not help but become excited. Baiming, there's something wrong. Zhan Li felt that there must be some conspiracy behind this. It's better to believe it than not. It's just a meeting. I've been to the Thousand Snow Pavilion a few times. Even if there was just a little bit of news about Yunxing, he would not let it go. Zhan Li could not help but shake his head. Once the matter involved Yunxing, Yi Baiming's calmness completely disappeared. The word love was really misleading. He could only hope that Yi Baiming would be able to find out about Yunxing's whereabouts tonight. Otherwise, Zhan Li could not imagine what Yi Baiming would do. At night, Yi Baiming arrived at the Thousand Snow Pavilion around midnight, just as he had been told. Thousand Snow Pavilion was a small tea house in the city for people to rest. It was built by a famous philanthropist and official in Jade Capital City. There was a row of stone tables and chairs set up inside for the passers-by to rest and recuperate. The pavilion was warm in winter and cool in summer. The surrounding scenery was beautiful, and there was a field of canna growing quite well. At this time the fat green banana leaves and red canna were in full bloom, often attracting passers-by to stop and watch. At night the tea house should have been empty. Yi Baiming strolled over, looking around cautiously. After making sure that no one was lying in ambush, he entered the Thousand Snow Pavilion. As soon as he entered the tea house, Yi Baiming saw a person lying on the stone table. Although he hadn't approached, Yi Baiming could smell a faint scent of blood in the air. Looking at the clothes, Yi Baiming felt a chill in his heart. He was just about to back away. Suddenly the surrounding area was brightly lit. A group of fully armed Imperial guards rushed out. The one leading them was Qin Lianer, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. However, tonight Qin Lianer's expression was clearly different from usual. Yi Baiming, you actually dared to poison the Crown Prince. Qin Lianer's face was tear-stained. She held a letter in her hand, her eyes filled with accusation. It was a letter signed by Yi Baiming. The handwriting was also written by Yi Baiming. The letter said that Baiming King had invited the Crown Prince to the Thousand Snow Pavilion for a gathering at noon. Behind Qin Lianer were dozens of Imperial guards. Each of them held a crossbow and surrounded the Thousand Snow Pavilion. Yi Baiming narrowed his eyes. His initial shock had already disappeared like a tide. He didn't even look at Qin Lianer. He only glanced sideways at the dead Yi Baiming. He had been tricked. He knew that this was a trap, but because it involved the little wild cat, he had lost his composure. Yi Baiming didn't explain. He knew that tonight's trap was not set up by Qin Lianer alone. The people behind her had already blocked off all his escape routes. Dozens of Imperial guards were nothing in Yi Baiming's eyes. Qin Lianer was also not his match. However, he wouldn't run away. If he ran away, everyone related to him would be implicated. The Emperor of Zhou State was never someone who cared about old friendships. Yi Baiming's silence was a confession in the eyes of the Imperial guards. They also didn't expect Baiming King to be so bold as to poison the Crown Prince. You have nothing to say? Yi Baiming, I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Men, take Baiming King back and put him in prison, Qin Lianer said harshly. The Imperial guards swarmed forward and took Yi Baiming away. The tears on Qin Lianer's face hadn't dried yet. Seeing Yi Baiming being taken away, she felt a tearing pain in her heart. Even when Yi Baiming was taken away, he didn't even look at her. In his heart, she couldn't even compare to a speck of dust. She muttered to herself, Yi Baiming, you're really smart all your life, but now you're stupid. You completely lose your cool when it comes to Yunsheng. You clearly know that this is a trap, but you still jumped into it? What? Don't you remember at all? When we were young, we sneaked out of the palace for the first time and stopped outside to drink water at the Thousand Snow Pavilion. Qin Lianer cried silently. Tonight's incident was ordered by the Dark Crown Prince, Du Guxiu. Yi Baiming beat the Dark Crown Prince to the marriage agreement with Yun Sheng. This matter made the proud and arrogant Du Guxiu extremely angry. He had been looking for an opportunity to take revenge on Yi Baiming. This time he ordered Qin Lianer to frame Yi Baiming. Although Qin Lianer was unwilling, she couldn't do anything when she thought of the Dark Crown Prince's threat. She purposely chose the Thousand Snow Pavilion to remind Yi Baiming of the past and to be vigilant. However, Yi Baiming didn't remember anything about the past and went straight to the appointment. You were the one who chose to give up on me. Wait until I enter the magic elite camp of the continent. I will definitely transform into someone even more dazzling than Yunsheng. At that time, you will definitely regret the choice you made back then. Qin Lianer's heart filled with sorrow turned into anger. She wiped her tears and walked to Yi Bailian's side, who was already dead. She glanced coldly at her ex-fiancé. Fiancé. Yi Bailian, if you didn't try to fight with me for the spot in the mainland's magic elite camp, I wouldn't have killed you so quickly. Mediocre is mediocre. Even if you were born in the imperial family, you are still mediocre. Qin Lianer kicked the Crown Prince Yi Bailian to the ground. The Crown Prince's corpse was completely cold the next day before it was carried back by the palace guards. After the news of Yi Baiming poisoning the Crown Prince broke out, the news didn't immediately spread. The Zhou State's emperor ordered people to block the news. When Empress Qi saw her son's corpse, she cried her heart out. She begged the Zhou State's emperor several times, hoping that he could immediately execute Yi Baiming. However, this time, the Zhou State's emperor didn't listen to Empress Qi's pillow talk like before. He dismissed Empress Qi and didn't immediately interrogate Yi Baiming. It was as if he had forgotten that the Crown Prince was poisoned to death. No one knew what the Zhou State's emperor was thinking. Yi Baiming was only imprisoned in the prison. Zhan Li, Qing Bai, and the others also tried to mediate, but they were all rejected. The guards in the prison were all replaced by the Marquis of Jiyuan's subordinates. they had no chance at all. Chapter 474. On the other side in Icefall City there was a different scene. Yun Sheng's ice zither, after nearly half a month of meticulous carving, had finally been made into a zither embryo. The moment she saw the zither embryo, even the masked female prisoner couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. This zither was sparkling and translucent, having been carved out of a complete piece of 1,000-year-old ice. It looked like a reclining ice sculpture of a beauty. From head to toe, there wasn't a single spot that wasn't beautiful and delicate. She didn't expect that Yun Sheng's technique would be so good on her first attempt at ice sculpting. Ice sculpting wasn't a quick skill. During this period of time, the masked female prisoner also noticed that Yun Sheng's attention and imitating ability were the best among all the people she had seen. If this kind of temperament appeared in an old man or a middle-aged man who had experienced the world, it wouldn't be strange. But if Yun Sheng was at her age, it was very strange. The masked female prisoner was really puzzled. What kind of experience could make a young girl develop such a calm habit? Yun Sheng didn't know that the masked female prisoner was gradually becoming curious about her. Because she had trillium hands and Shinnong pupil, she was observant and remembered all the masked female prisoners' carving tips in her heart. After careful carving, it finally became a good zither. The 1,000-year-old ice zither was purely handmade, without a trace of flaw. The entire body of the zither was carved out of ice. Although it wasn't jade, it was countless times better than jade. If Yun Sheng wasn't in prison and didn't have any distractions, she wouldn't have been able to carve such a good zither in one go. She also knew in her heart that even if she could do it again, she wouldn't be able to carve an identical zither. The moment the zither was carved out, even someone like Xian Mimi, who was born in Grand Emperor City and had seen all kinds of first-class musical instruments, couldn't help but be envious. What's the use of having a zither embryo? The most important part of a zither is the strings. Don't tell me you can carve the strings out of ice? Xian Mimi said sarcastically. After she understood the purpose of Yun Sheng carving the guqin, she had secretly learned from her. However, Xian Mimi wasn't Yun Sheng. She was an impetuous person and only wanted to speed things up. After carving for a few days, she gave up and wasted a lot of good ice materials. She could only be envious of Yun Sheng's guqin. With Xian Mimi's reminder, Yun Sheng finally noticed that the zither in her hand was just a stand without any strings. The zither strings on the continent were mostly made from the tendons or hides of various magical beasts. However, Yun Sheng was now trapped in a place like the ice prison. Where could she find the zither strings? The Millennium Ice Zither had a zither but no strings. Without strings, how could she play it? Ice could not be carved into elastic zither strings. How could she play the Dihong song without the strings? Yun Sheng was a little discouraged. Her dejected look fell into the eyes of the masked female prisoner. The masked female prisoner thoughtfully glanced at the skeleton of the ice zither. Although there were no strings, Yun Sheng still cherished this newly carved 1,000-year-old ice zither very much. She carefully carved a few karmic fire lotus patterns on the body of the zither. The whole zither also became more beautiful. The next morning Yun Sheng woke up after a nap. She suddenly noticed that there were a few more silver strings on her zither. This is... Yun Sheng was astonished. She touched the zither strings. When her hand touched the zither strings were full of elasticity. The luster was light silver, as if it was draped in the moonlight. She looked at the masked female prisoner in disbelief. Those few silver strings were actually the silver hair of the masked female prisoner. From the moment Yun Sheng entered this ice prison, Yun Sheng noticed that the masked female prisoner liked her long hair very much. She would usually use clean snow to wipe her hair. Last time, Xian Mimi only looked at her hair a few more times and she was ruthlessly slapped in the face. But she cut off her own hair and used it to make zither strings. Thinking about it, the masked female prisoner took advantage of the time when she was asleep last night to make zither strings for her without telling her. Yun Sheng's nose turned sour. After coming to the boundless land, there were indeed many people who cared about her. But this unfamiliar care came from a stranger. Thank you, Yun Sheng said softly. Her lips had an additional smile that came from the bottom of her heart. 2 deep dimples appeared on her face. A pair of black eyes that could speak were filled with joy. This was the first time the masked female prisoner saw a sincere smile on Yun Sheng's face. Under the mask, that beautiful face, the corners of her mouth could not help but curl up. But just as the masked female prisoner was about to laugh, her expression suddenly became alert, as if she felt uneasy about her strange emotions. She was not good at expressing goodwill to people, but she did not know why, but she liked this young lady who knew medicine. Seeing her smile, the masked female prisoner's mood would be much better. Yun Xing did not like to receive benefits from others for no reason. After thinking for a while, she took out a hairpin from her sleeve. That hairpin was polished by Yun Xing when she was making the Millennium Ice Zither. Her original intention was to let the masked female prisoner use it to tie up her hair. The woman's silver hair was very beautiful. If she used such a sparkling and translucent hairpin, it would definitely be very suitable. The masked female prisoner hesitated for a moment. Then, with a swift hand gesture, she snatched the hairpin away. After receiving the hairpin, she did not wear it. She only rubbed it in her hand and did not allow others to see it. She was afraid that those people would snatch it away. Although she could not see the expression under the mask, Yun Xing saw a trace of joy in the masked female prisoner's eyes. That trace of joy made the warmth in Yun Xing's heart thicker. Because of this incident, the relationship between Yun Xing and the masked female prisoner became more harmonious. The two of them still did not speak much, but their private interactions revealed a sense of harmony that they had never felt before. This sense of harmony made the other female prisoners in the ice prison very apprehensive. The masked female prisoner's hair was unexpectedly suitable for making zither strings. Not only was the quality of her hair good, but it was also very flexible. Yun Xing tried it and found that the tone was very beautiful. It was also the first time that Yun Xing found out that human hair was actually so suitable for making zither strings. With the zither strings, Yun Xing began to practice playing the Dihong song according to her plan. In the next few days, the mellow sound of the zither could be heard from time to time in the cold ice prison. The moment she heard the sound of the zither, the masked female prisoner leaned against the cold wall and closed her eyes. In the ice prison, an unprecedented emotion also appeared. The martial artists and mages more or less felt the uniqueness of Yun Xing's zither music. On the other end of the ice prison, Yuan Bupo also heard the zither music that he had not heard for a long time. The moment he heard the zither music, Yuan Bupo, who had been worried about Yun Xing's safety for the past month, jumped excitedly. It's Yun Xing's zither music. Yuan Bupo recognized Yun Xing's zither music. What surprised him even more was that Yun Xing played the Dihong song intermittently for the next few days. A few of the movements were clearly the last three movements of the Dihong song that he had only played once in front of Yun Xing. Yuan Bupo suddenly realized that Yun Xing's attainment and improvement in the Dihong song had far exceeded his expectations. As he was concerned about Yun Xing's identity, he had only played it once in front of her. She could remember such a complicated piece of music just by playing it once. Chapter 475. In the past, Yun Xing was clearly a tone-deaf person who did not know how to play the zither. She must have hired a musician after the incident. That musician must be quite skilled in the zither. In just a few short months, Yun Xing's zither skills were quite good. In the field of Dihong song, she could be said to have improved the fastest among all the people that Yuan Bupo had seen. She was definitely a genius. Yuan Bupo was suspicious. Yun Xing was locked up in the prison cell and he did not know where she got the zither from. However, from the sound of the music, it was undoubtedly a very good zither. Even Xian Mimi's zither might not be comparable to that zither. Perhaps, a bold thought appeared in Yuan Bupo's mind. While he was overjoyed, Yun Xing was the most suitable person to enter Emperor's tomb with him. According to the rules of Grand Emperor City, a woman would play the zither and a man would play the flute. They would complement each other. After entering Emperor's tomb, they would be tested by Grand Emperor's ancestor. Only those who passed the test would be able to obtain the last 3 chapters of the Dihong song. The 7th, 8th, and 9th chapters. Legend had it that they were the true essence of the Dihong song. All this while, Grand Emperor City had been looking for the most suitable person to play the zither and flute in order to enter Emperor's tomb. However, for countless generations, Grand Emperor City had never had a pair that could pass Emperor's tomb's test. Those who entered Emperor's tomb had to have good teamwork. Only those who had good teamwork could understand the essence of the last 3 chapters of the Dihong song. For this teamwork, Grand Emperor City's rule had always been to select couples or young men and women who had feelings for each other to enter. Yuan Bupo had a crush on Yun Xing. He also believed that as long as he persevered, he would be able to move Yun Xing one day. This time, as long as he could leave the immortal Ju nation smoothly, he had to find a way to convince Yun Xing. As for Grand Emperor City, if his parents heard about Yun Xing's zither skills, they would definitely agree. Yuan Bupo secretly made up his mind. After knowing that Yun Xing was safe and sound, Yuan Bupo's heart calmed down. He began to get close to the people in the prison cell and asked about Icefall City and the Water of Life. On the other side of the cell, Xian Mimi was also shocked when she heard the zither music up close. It was hard for her to imagine that an outsider who had only learned the Dihong song for a few months at most could play the Dihong song so well. Jealousy and hatred grew wildly in her heart. Yun Xing was the first person who could make her envious of her zither skills and gain Yuan Bupo's favor. For a moment, Xian Mimi even had the urge to rush forward and smash Yun Xing's zither to stop her from playing. She knew that Yun Xing's music must have passed through the ice prison and reached Brother Bupo's ears. If Brother Bupo heard this kind of music, he would definitely be even more loyal to Yun Xing. However, when she saw the masked female prisoner sitting not far from Yun Xing looking at her like a venomous snake, Xian Mimi couldn't help but give up on that idea. That masked female prisoner was terrifying. Xian Mimi didn't know how strong she was, but she had never been so afraid even when facing her own father. At the same time, Yun Xing's zither music shocked everyone in the cell. Wuxia secretly channeled the combat energy in her body. She realized that Yun Xing's music had an unknown mysterious power. Under the effect of that power, the combat energy in her body that was originally sealed by the elves using a special method was slowly recovering. Although the recovery speed was very slow, the music was like an endless spring rain day by day. The combat energy and magic elements in her body were like a rising stream, recovering bit by bit. If this continued, a crazy idea appeared in Wuxia's mind. Perhaps they had hope of escaping the ice prison. Similar thoughts were born in the hearts of every prisoner in the ice prison, just like a drug addiction. Once the idea popped up, it was deeply rooted and couldn't be removed. Everyone's situation was similar. After being hit by the demon sealing arrow, their combat energy and magic power loosened and began to show signs of recovery. The elves also heard the music. They checked and found that it was a little girl playing an ice harp that they carved themselves. They didn't take it to heart and allowed Yun Xing to play the ice harp. Ever since Yun Xing played the Dihong song, there were more and more people in the ice prison who couldn't sleep every night. They were all silently waiting for that moment, the moment of eruption to arrive. In the depths of the immortal Jiu nation, there was a huge tree that towered into the clouds. The tree was so tall that at a glance one couldn't see the top of the tree. On top of the mushroom cloud-like treetops, there was a breathtaking elven palace. The elves were originally the race with the most outstanding craftsmanship in the boundless continent. The royal families and rich people on the continent wanted to spend a lot of money just to hire an elven craftsman. Unfortunately, the elves didn't like to deal with humans. They weren't interested in human gold coins. Therefore, a miracle like the elven palace could only be seen in the immortal Jiu nation. The elven palace was the painstaking work of countless generations of outstanding elven craftsmen. Every cornerstone here was made of the finest white marble. The white palace had lofts of various sizes with arched roofs. The doors were also made of refined white gold. The walls were inlaid with luminous pearls that would never dim. Under the moonlight, it would be covered with a layer of light purple that was like a veil. It was so dreamy that it didn't seem to belong to the human world. In one of the palace rooms of the elven royal court, a handsome man sat amidst piles of files. The man had blonde hair and blue eyes. His long hair was casually draped behind his back. He pinched the space between his eyebrows from time to time as he looked at a pile of memorials from various elven tribes. So boring. Divine Wind couldn't remember how many times he had sighed. He threw the memorials to the side. How many books was this already? Divine Wind was depressed. Ever since he returned to the immortal Jiu nation, the elven queen, Divine Wind's mother, had thrown all kinds of affairs to him. The people of the boundless continent knew that the immortal Jiu nation was ruled by the elven queen. But in reality, the immortal Jiu nation only began to implement the unified rule of the elven court in the last 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years ago, there were 4 elven queens of fire, water, wind, and earth in the immortal abode nation. Each of them had a different ability to control magic. At that time, the immortal abode nation was at its most prosperous. But at some point, the 3 elven queens of fire, water, and earth fell one after another. The ancestor of Divine Wind, the Wind Elven Queen, became the only remaining elven queen. In the generation of the Divine Wind's mother, she became the only queen of the immortal Jiu nation. The other major tribes were ruled by the elven patriarchs. The Divine Wind's mother, the Wind Elven Queen, had inherited the elven throne for nearly 500 years. In the past 500 years, the immortal Jiu nation had been stable and prosperous. Divine Wind was the only son of the Wind Elven Queen. This was somewhat different from the other elven tribes, which had many descendants. This was because the Divine Wind's mother only had one husband, while the elven race practiced polygamy. Divine Wind was not only the only son of the Wind Elven Queen, but he was also a half-elf hybrid. Chapter 476. Divine Wind's father was a mixed-blood elf court musician. His bloodline wasn't high, but not long after Divine Wind's mother gave birth to Divine Wind, her husband died in an accident. And that accident happened to be caused by the invasion of the human race. Since then, the Elf Queen closed the Snow Forest Sea and prohibited outsiders from entering. She also hated the human race very much. Anyone who invaded the Snow Forest Sea would be thrown into Icefall City. As the only son of the Elf Queen, Divine Wind grew up in that kind of environment. Because of his human bloodline, when Divine Wind was young, he heard his father talk about the life of the human race in the outside world. After his father died, no one dared to talk about the outside world in front of him. Divine Wind had always had a longing and curiosity for the outside world. Although from the moment he was born, he was destined to inherit the elf throne and become the next elf king. But just like his name, Divine Wind's temperament was naturally erratic, like the most erratic wind in the Snow Forest Sea. He didn't want to face mountains of memorials all day long, nor did he want to face the balance between the different races in the immortal residence country. He also didn't want to accept the elf throne, which made the Elf Queen very distressed. Divine Wind missed Yunxing very much after parting ways with her at Daoi Mountain. But because the Elf Queen summoned him, he had to return to the immortal residence. He came back, but his heart was lost. I really want to sneak out of the immortal residence and go to Zhou State. How long has it been since I last saw little Loli? 721 days plus 2.5 hours. Divine Wind picked up a brush and wrote a number on the thickest memorial. He missed little Loli very much. In the past 2 years he always wanted to find a chance to sneak out, but unfortunately the Elf Queen kept a close eye on him. Sigh, if this goes on, the Elf Queen will definitely make me the Crown Prince. After I become the Crown Prince, I won't have so much free time to sneak out to see little Sheng. Little Sheng has gotten fat in the past 2 years? Taller? I really miss her. Divine Wind's face was full of worry. There was a slight sound, but Divine Wind didn't turn around. He seemed to inadvertently flick his finger and a gust of wind rolled towards the source of the sound. As the wind came and went, it formed a palm-sized magic cage with a little fellow inside. Divine Wind's handsome face moved closer to take a look. The source of the sound was a moth-sized demon spirit butterfly. Little guy, why did you come to the king tree? If the cleaning lady saw you, she would slap you flat. Divine Wind played with the wind cage in her hand. The Chi-Mei spirit butterfly kept bumping into the cage. It looked like it wanted to rush out and tell Divine Wind something. Normally, this kind of spirit butterfly would not be able to fly up the Elven King tree. For this Chi-Mei spirit butterfly to be able to fly up here, it must have gone through a lot of hardships. Divine Wind noticed that on the wings of the demon spirit butterfly, there were small wounds caused by excessive flapping of its wings. Divine Wind frowned as he recalled something. The Chi-Mei spirit butterfly seemed to know that Divine Wind didn't understand its meaning, so it shook its body and turned into a light green Chi-Mei spirit stone. Little Xing'er's soul stone. Divine Wind's 5 fingers exerted force, and the wind cage turned into a few wisps of wind. The Chi-Mei spirit stone appeared in his palm. Divine Wind remembered very clearly that this was the Chi-Mei spirit stone he gave to Yunsheng. Under normal circumstances, Xiao AI would not separate the spirit stone from the magic scepter, but the Chi-Mei spirit stone was different. The Chi-Mei spirit stone that Divine Wind gave her was a little special. It was a wind Chi-Mei spirit stone that could transform into a spirit butterfly. Divine Wind's original intention was to use this spirit stone when he wanted to find Yunsheng in the future. He didn't expect that it would come in handy today. Why would Yunsheng come to the immortal residence for no reason? Moreover, looking at the situation of the Chi-Mei spirit butterfly, it was very likely that Yunsheng was in deep danger. There was only one way for outsiders to enter the immortal residence country, and the first stop was the Snow Forest Sea. If they were caught, they would definitely be imprisoned in Icefall City. Divine Wind immediately had the court's female officer send over the list of prisoners in Icefall City. Every prisoner's name and country of origin would be recorded and updated in real time. Divine Wind read 10 lines at a glance, his mouth muttering Yunsheng's name. He had already inquired about it. Yin Yun was only Yunsheng's pseudonym. Her real identity was a descendant of the Zhou State's Yin residents. Divine Wind wanted to see Yunsheng's name, but at the same time he was afraid of finding Yunsheng's name. If she was imprisoned in Icefall City, it would not be easy to rescue her. Yunsheng, Zhou State citizen, imprisoned in the women's ice prison for attempting to steal the water of life. Divine Wind's hand paused when he saw Yunsheng's name. Just a few lines below Yunsheng's name, there was another name, but Divine Wind didn't pay attention to that name. Little Loli came to the Immortal Keeper Nation to look for the water of life? Divine Wind wanted to immediately go to Icefall City, but he still had a layer of concern in his heart. Icefall City's status in the Immortal Keeper Nation was very special. The prisoners inside would only be pardoned during the Queen's coronation or the 100th birthday. On ordinary days, the prisoners of Icefall City would never be released. Even if he was the Divine Wind King in the Immortal Keeper Nation, he couldn't break this rule. Divine Wind pondered. In a few days, it will be the 497th birthday of the Queen Mother. Maybe I can take advantage of her birthday to secretly go to Icefall City. The Elven Queen's birthday was a national celebration. The elves, according to tradition, would fast and bathe on that day. The guards of Icefall City would be no exception. If Divine Wind sneaked into Icefall City at that time and released a female prisoner, it wouldn't attract much attention. Divine Wind decided to secretly bring a bottle of water of life to Yunsheng on the day of the Queen's birthday after the birthday celebration. Yunsheng didn't care too much about the disappearance of the demon spirit butterfly. After all, her magic scepter had been confiscated. With the Millennium Ice Zither, Yunsheng's days in the ice prison were a little better. At least each day didn't feel like a year. The Dihong song was worthy of being called an ancient war song. Its effect was very significant. Yunsheng's magic soul, which had been suppressed by the elves, was gradually recovering. Although it still couldn't reach the state before she was locked in the ice prison, it had at least 50 to 60% of its usual magic power. She also gradually resumed her meditation. But to Yunsheng's disappointment, every time she tried to contact the Night Fox, her thoughts would be interrupted. It seemed that there was a mysterious power in the Elven Kingdom that prevented her from contacting the outside world. Under the influence of the Dihong song and her constant meditation, Yunsheng waited for her opportunity to escape. On this day, as usual, Yunsheng received food and water in advance. Why is today's food and water a little different? As usual, Yunsheng took 2 sets of water and food. She found that today's food and water were a little different. Chapter 477. For more than a month, most of the food given by the elves was dry and hard steamed buns and water melted from snow. But today there were some fruits and the water was replaced with fruit wine that tasted good. Their elf queen's birthday is celebrated for 3 days in a row. It's the same every year at this time. Wuxia could be considered a 10-year veteran, so she was very familiar with some of the daily activities of the elves. While speaking, the masked female prisoner had already taken her food and wine. Wuxia also took her food and wine. She also enjoyed a big mouthful of elven fruit wine. The elves were the first race to learn the art of brewing in recorded history, so their fruit wine tasted very good even if it was for prisoners. What are the activities for the Queen's birthday? Yunsheng asked very casually. The food will be more sumptuous. On the day of the Queen's birthday, the elves have to bathe and pray. During that time there are almost no people in the ice prison. When Wuxia said this, she looked at Yunsheng thoughtfully. However, Yunsheng just smiled and didn't take it a step further. Boring. Wuxia thought she would do something. Seeing that Yunsheng was indifferent, she could not help but feel a little discouraged. During this time, Wuxia's Doqi had also recovered. She also secretly asked a few of her companions, and their situation was similar. Yunsheng's situation should be similar. She even began to meditate these days, and the time she spent meditating was much longer than the other mages. Wuxia did not know what cultivation level Yunsheng was as a mage, but from the way she meditated, her strength was definitely not bad. In the whole cell, if there was anyone who was still as calm as before, it was probably the masked female prisoner. During this period of time, the masked woman did not meditate, nor did she meditate. Most of the time she would just listen quietly to Yunsheng play the zither. In fact, during the days they spent with her, Wuxia and the others could not tell whether she was a warrior or a mage or even both. Everything about this woman was too mysterious. When she was crazy she was like a killing machine, but when she was quiet she was as quiet as a painting. The more she was like this, the more the people in the female prison were apprehensive of her. Only Yunsheng would get along with her calmly. After eating some food, Yunsheng entered a state of meditation as usual. This time she actually succeeded in entering a state of deep meditation. This meant that Yunsheng's magical strength had at least recovered 50%. And the effect of the demon arrow on her was gradually disappearing. Unfortunately, today was the day that the masked female prisoner was to be punished. This didn't seem to have changed because of the arrival of the queen's birthday. Xian Mimi took advantage of the fact that Yun Sheng was in deep meditation and had no time to pay attention to the outside world to sneak in front of Wuxia and the others. I know you want to break out of prison. I want to join you. I can help you, but you have to help me snatch that Millennium Ice Zither from Yun Sheng's hands. Xian Mimi had been drooling over Yun Sheng's ice zither for a long time. Although she also had an expensive colored zither in terms of sound and appearance, it was not at the same level as the Millennium Ice Zither. Under the effect of the Dihong song, Xian Mimi's magical strength had recovered 30% to 40%. She believed that as long as she snatched Yun Sheng's zither, she would definitely be able to escape from Icefall City. Moreover, if the Dihong song was played with the Millennium Ice Zither, it would definitely have unexpected effects. Perhaps with that zither, she would be able to enter the Emperor's tomb with Brother Bupo in the future. Why should I believe you? You're with her. Wuxia saw Xian Mimi and snorted disdainfully. She didn't like Yun Sheng, but she didn't have a good impression of Xian Mimi either. Together? I can't wait for her to die. I have nothing to do with her. If you promise me, after leaving the immortal Ju nation, my father will definitely reward you handsomely. I am the daughter of the Grand Emperor City's city lord. Xian Mimi revealed her identity. The daughter of the Grand Emperor City's city lord? Although most of the female prisoners present had been locked in prison for many years, and some had even been locked up for as long as 10 years, they had all heard of the Grand Emperor City's prestige. They didn't expect Xian Mimi to be the Grand Emperor City's young Mississippi. If it was in the past, even if these prisoners saw the Grand Emperor City's city lord, they wouldn't have anything to say. This was because they had always believed that once they were locked up in Icefall City, it meant that they wouldn't be able to leave for the rest of their lives. No matter how powerful the Grand Emperor City was, it was impossible for them to invade the immortal Ju nation and take down Icefall City. However, it was different now. The female prisoner's cultivation had recovered due to Yun Sheng's zither music. In addition, this time, it just so happened that the queen's birthday had happened, so the city's defenses had become lax. Their chances of escaping had greatly increased. If there was another group prison break at this time, as long as they waited for the elven guards to deliver food the next day, they would still have a chance to escape if everyone swarmed together. Wuxia didn't immediately believe Xian Mimi's words. She had a certain level of intelligence to be able to become the boss of the female prison. She had offended Xian Mimi before and could also see that this woman had a mean appearance and wasn't a kind person. Who said I'm going to leave? I've committed many murders. Even if I leave, it won't be any better than in Icefall City. There's no place for me on the continent. Although 10 years had passed, Wuxia's enemies from back then might not let her go. What's so difficult about that? Other places won't tolerate you. As long as you help me snatch the zither, I guarantee that the Grand Emperor City will take you in. I can tell my father that you're my savior. When the time comes, you'll be a member of the Grand Emperor City. What enemies would you be afraid of? Xian Mimi coaxed. Xian Mimi thought to herself, this damn thieving woman has some brains. Do you really think I'll treat you well? Wait until I escape from Icefall City, then see how I'll deal with you. I'll make you my servant for the rest of your life and enslave and torture you. Wuxia was a bit tempted when she heard this. She looked warily at Yun Sheng, who was still meditating, and the 1,000-year-old ice zither beside her. Wuxia's biggest taboo was the masked female prisoner with Yun Sheng. Although the masked female prisoner was cold to everyone, it was undeniable that she was very special to Yun Sheng. If the two of them joined forces, she didn't have much of a chance of winning. What are you still hesitating for? Tomorrow must be the best chance to escape. Yun Sheng's Dihong song was secretly learned from our Grand Emperor City. She's only learned it for a few days, so she can't compare to me at all. There's also that masked female prisoner. She was whipped again today and will definitely be seriously injured when she returns. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Xian Mimi didn't want to wait for the next queen's birthday. Chapter 478. Xian Mimi didn't want to stay in this cold place for a moment longer. While they were talking, the door of the cell opened. The masked female prisoner had finished her punishment and was thrown in like a broken sack. She fell to the ground with a dull thud. It was the Elven Queen's birthday, so her punishment was much lighter than before. She could even struggle to sit in a corner and close her eyes to rest. Because her injuries weren't serious, the masked female prisoner didn't wake Yun Sheng up this time. When Xian Mimi, Wuxia, and the others saw her, they immediately fell silent. The masked female prisoner didn't have any reaction. She always disdained to pay attention to the actions of others in the cell and didn't care what Wuxia and the others were discussing. After another half a day, Yunxing woke up from her deep meditation state. She felt that the magic power in her body had recovered by a lot. It was at least 60% of her usual magic power. She looked around and didn't find anything strange. The masked female prisoner had returned and was sitting cross-legged on the side with an expressionless face. "Senior, you were tortured again?" Yunxing walked up and looked behind her. She found that the punishment this time was much lighter than a few days ago. While pretending to check her wounds, Yunxing lowered her voice and said in a mosquito-like voice, "Senior, I want to break out of prison. Afternoon is the best time to break out of prison. If you want, we can escape together." The masked female prisoner didn't say a word as if she didn't hear her. She neither objected nor agreed. Yunxing couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She and the masked female prisoner didn't know each other for long, but they got along very well. Yunxing and the masked female prisoner didn't know each other for long, but the two of them had cultivated a very special tacit understanding. The masked female prisoner looked lonely and didn't know which country she was from. Yunxing thought that if she could successfully break out of prison this time, she might be able to persuade her to return to Zhou State with her. However, the masked female prisoner didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. While they were talking, the door of the cell opened and two elves came to deliver food. In the cell, Wuxia and the others as well as Yunxing were all sitting in a corner, pretending that nothing had happened. Yunxing used her hand to gently stroke her 1,000-year-old ice zither, while Wuxia gave several female prisoners a meaningful glance. Today was the birthday of the elf queen, so the food delivered by the elves was more abundant than usual. The moment the two elves bent down, Yunxing and Wuxia moved at the same time. Wuxia was surprised by Yunxing's skill. She couldn't tell what skill Yunxing was using. She only saw a green shadow flash by. A strange gust of wind blew past their ears. When they realized that something was wrong with the prisoners, the elves hurriedly tried to pull out their elven bows. However, it was already too late. Wuxia used Black Tiger Steel's heart and punched the elf's chest. The sound of bones cracking could be heard. At the same time, several female prisoners rushed forward and covered the elf's mouth and nose. Compared to Wuxia and the others, Yunxing's killing was much faster and more convenient. A sharp icicle suddenly appeared in her hand. The icicle pierced the elf's Achilles heel. The elf swallowed his last breath and fainted. Whether it was elves or humans, even if their bloodlines were different, the acupoints on their bodies were the same. Wuxia's expression became serious when she saw Yunxing easily knocked out an elf without making a sound. In the cell there was dead silence. In the next second, almost at the same time, Shen Mimi was the first to dash out of the cell, followed by Wuxia and the others. The other prisoners hesitated for a while before they followed suit and dashed out of the ice prison one after another. At the same time, on the other side of the cell. In the men's cell, Yuan Bupo and a few other male prisoners who had been locked up for a long time decided to make their move on the same day. The advantage of the Dihong Song allowed the mages and warriors whose combat energy and magic power were restricted to recover some of their abilities. They also thought of breaking out of the prison on the day of the queen's birthday. As soon as Yuan Bupo left the cell, he was not in a hurry to escape. He dashed to the other side of the ice prison like an arrow, trying to find Yunxing and the others. The women's cell was emptied in a matter of moments. "Senior, aren't you leaving?" Yunxing hugged the 1,000-year-old ice harp and asked the masked female prisoner again. The latter still did not move, as if everything that happened in the prison had nothing to do with her. She seemed to be petrified. She sat there without moving and had no intention of leaving. If she was not still breathing, Yunxing would have thought that she was dead. The masked female prisoner still did not speak. Her actions had already explained everything. It was as if there was something that she had to stay for. "I'll take my leave then." Yunxing saw that persuasion was useless, so she could only leave. The elves would soon find out that the prisoners had escaped. She had to leave Icefall City as soon as possible. When she reached the door of the ice prison, Yunxing thought of something and turned her head. "Senior, we have been together for a month, but we still don't know each other's names. My name is Yunxing from Jade Capital, Zhou State. In the future, if you leave the Immortal Residence and want to go to Zhou State, you can come to Jade Capital's Little Ci Entong or Tian Fa Hunting Corps to find me." The masked female prisoner still did not say a word. Yunxing was a little disappointed and could only turn and leave. The masked female prisoner suddenly spoke, her voice was still hoarse. "My name is. They want to plot against you." The masked female prisoner wanted to say her name, but she quickly remembered her real identity. She still did not say it and only warned Yunsheng. Yunsheng heard and smiled. "Thank you for the reminder, senior." The masked female prisoner was stunned and then nodded. Why didn't she ask how those people wanted to frame her? Why didn't they ask her for help? The two of them had been together in the cell for so long that they had formed a tacit understanding between each other. "Senior, don't worry. They can't do anything to me. We will meet again if fate wills it." Yunsheng smiled for the last time. She quickly disappeared outside the cell and did not look back. She was afraid that if she hesitated and looked back, she would not be able to resist the urge to knock the masked female prisoner out and take her out. Yunsheng's tone was full of absolute confidence. Yunsheng, was not someone that could be plotted against by that kind of person. That confidence made the smile on Yunsheng's face even brighter. Those who saw it could not help but be infected and their hearts were filled with courage. One person she had the confidence to stop a group of people? This child, should she be said to be overconfident or arrogant? Under the mask of the masked female prisoner, there was a moment of hesitation on her beautiful face. She opened her mouth. When she saw that girl leave for a moment she actually wanted to call out to Yunsheng. Yunsheng. Yunsheng, it was a very nice name. It was as if she had heard this name before. Yunsheng of Zhou State. She remembered this name. Chapter 479. Not long after Yunsheng left, there was another series of hurried footsteps. Yuan Bupo kicked open the cell door and looked inside. Yuan Bupo was stunned when he saw that there was nobody inside. However, he soon realized that the female prisoners in the female prison had the same thought as them. They had broken out of the prison together. He was to blame for being stupid. Yunsheng was smarter than most people. Since she could play the Dihong song in the prison, she must have planned to break out of the prison. Yuan Bupo looked at the female prison. Everyone had left and there was only a female prisoner with a mask sitting at the corner of the prison cell. Yuan Bupo paused for a moment, then he walked up and asked, "Were there two young ladies imprisoned here before?" One of them had two dimples when she smiled. "Senior, do you know where she went?" The masked female prisoner did not say a word. This female prisoner was very strange. Yuan Bupo did not even dare to get close to her as he felt an inexplicable sense of danger when he was too close to this woman. "Weirdo," Yuan Bupo mumbled. He did not stay any longer and rushed out to look for Yunsheng and the rest. When Yunsheng left the female prison, she wanted to return to the male prison to look for Yuan Bupo. However, she happened to choose the opposite path from Yuan Bupo. She ran halfway, but before she reached the male prison she saw a few male prisoners running out. She grabbed one of them and asked. Only then did she know that Yuan Bupo and the rest had broken out of the prison too. There might be a riot in Icefall City today. Along the way Yunsheng saw that every cell was opened. It seemed like someone was purposely confusing the elves and releasing the prisoners who did not break out of the prison. When Yunsheng was halfway there, she still did not see Yuan Bupo. To make matters worse, just as Yunsheng planned to continue searching, a bugle horn sounded above Icefall City. It was clear that the elves had discovered that someone had broken out of the prison. This was the first time in the history of Icefall City, as well as the first time in the history of the elves that something like this had happened. The elven archers, who were still immersed in the joy of celebrating the queen's birthday, were now fully armed and carrying elven bows on their backs. They flapped their wings and appeared above Icefall City like locusts. Most of the prisoners who escaped without any preparation. They had no plan or organization and all of them fled in all directions. "We've discovered a group of prisoners. Shoot them." A red-haired elven captain led 50 to 60 elven archers. They looked down from above and after discovering the fugitive they showed no mercy. Flame arrows fell like meteors. This time they did not use demon-sealing arrows. Instead they used arrows that directly carried fatal magic attacks. The magic arrows were shot at the fugitives. The fugitives either turned into fireballs or ice shards. The 50 to 60 elven archers killed several of the fugitives in an instant. Yunsheng hugged the thousand-year liar and did not immediately escape from Icefall City. Unlike the others, after hearing the elven bugle horn, she did not rush out of the city. Instead, she ran towards the elven warriors' residence. Since most of the elven warriors were out hunting the fugitives, the palace, which was originally the most heavily guarded residence, was now the most lightly guarded. Yunsheng looked through a few rooms and only met one elven warrior. After knocking him out, Yunsheng broke into one of the elven rooms. There were wine and fruits for today's birthday celebration in the room. It seemed that this room was more luxurious than the others. It should be the residence of the captain of Icefall City. Yunsheng rummaged through the room. As expected, she found the orc language ring and magic scepter that were taken away from her earlier. After putting away the ring and scepter, Yunsheng took out a defensive map of Icefall City from her room. Only then was she fully prepared for her escape. After opening the defensive map and seeing her current location, Yunsheng quickly determined that she was at the northwest corner of Icefall City. It was an empty spot. She could break through there and leave Icefall City smoothly. Yunsheng put away the defensive map. Just as she was about to walk out of the room, a few people rushed in. Leading them were the complacent Xian Mimi and Wuxia, as well as a few warriors and mages. It turned out that Xian Mimi asked Wuxia to find Yuan Bupo, but the prison that held the male prisoners was empty. When Xian Mimi was looking for Yuan Bupo, she saw Yunsheng and followed her quietly with Wuxia. Hand over the defensive map. Wuxia was very experienced in escaping. She knew that if she wanted to escape from Icefall City, she must have the defensive map in her hands. Otherwise they would be killed by the elves sooner or later. Why are you talking to her? Just kill her and snatch it? Xian Mimi wanted to kill Yunsheng immediately. As long as Yunsheng died, Brother Bupo would give up on her. If you want to kill me, we'll have to see if you have the ability to do so. Yunsheng took out her magic scepter and chanted an incantation. Suddenly, a pair of wings sprouted from her back. She cleverly used an earthmeld spell to avoid Wuxia, Xian Mimi and the others and escaped from the room. The situation in Icefall City was urgent. Yunsheng did not want to be entangled with Xian Mimi and the others. In an instant, she had completed the body fusion technique with puffed egg. What are you waiting for? Chase after her and kill her. Xian Mimi was anxious. They all had weapons in their hands. Along the way they killed a few elves and snatched them from them. The magicians immediately chanted and Wuxia no longer hesitated. If she succeeded in breaking out of prison, she would be able to see the sky and have a slight chance of survival. However, if she failed, the enraged elves would definitely retaliate crazily. The combat energy in her body suddenly surged and a pair of combat energy wings appeared on her back. It turned out that Wuxia had actually made a breakthrough in her combat energy during the 10 years she was imprisoned. Under the influence of the Dihong Song, she had actually begun to comprehend the flight of combat energy. Wuxia leaped into the air, and several magic attacks followed closely behind him, chasing after Yunsheng relentlessly. The magicians also separately cast their magic attacks. Wind blades, water arrows and fireballs all attacked Yunsheng at the same time. Seeing this, Yunsheng waved her magic scepter. Bang bang bang. It was as if countless bullets had been fired from the ground. Dozens of thorns rose from the ground. The thorns were ferocious and ruthless, and they were mixed with a dark energy. They were clearly the dark thorns that Yunsheng had modified. The magicians were not prepared and were pierced through the soles of their feet. Blood immediately gushed out and they fell to the ground, dead. Dark magic was so domineering. It was fine if it was not used, but if it was used, it would definitely cause damage. Yunsheng never showed mercy to her enemies. She released several dark thorns in one go, and the originally flat ground cracked apart as if it had been hit by a magnitude 6 earthquake. Chapter 480. Xian Mimi's expression changed. She did not expect Yunsheng's magic to be so overbearing. Wuxia, take the Millennium Ice Zither from her and give it to me. Xian Mimi dodged as she scolded. Wuxia saw that Yunsheng's magic was endless. She thought to herself, so what if your magic is strong? I don't believe that your magic is limitless. After Yunsheng used magic a few times, the magic in her body had dissipated quite a bit. Especially after using the dark thorns, the magic in her body was consumed at an alarming rate. Yunsheng's biggest weakness was that most of her magic was already intermediate magic. She even possessed profound magic. However, these magic consumed a shocking amount of magic. For a normal master magician like Yunsheng, her magic was not enough. Usually Yunsheng would still have some meditation water with her. However, after coming to the Snow Forest Sea, the meditation water was all frozen and could not be used at all. After a few more fireballs, Yunsheng barely managed to beat back Wuxia, who was relentlessly chasing after her. She was flying at a low altitude. She was still within the Icefall City's range. The sky was the real territory of the elves. Yunsheng also didn't dare to rashly rise into the air, but because of this, Wuxia and Xian Mimi chased after her relentlessly. Yunsheng. Yuan Bupo ran out of the city and saw Yunsheng. Yunsheng heard Yuan Bupo's voice and looked down. However, Xian Mimi was very cunning. The moment Yunsheng lowered her head, she actually cast a wind blade. The wind blade slashed Yunsheng's wings. This pair of wings was formed after Yun Sheng and the puffed egg fused. However, in reality, it was the body of the puffed egg. With this attack, Yun Sheng's fusion skill was immediately dispelled. There was a deep wound on her body. The puffed egg was Yun Sheng's natal beast. The natal beast was closely related to the summoner. Yun Sheng endured the pain on her body and quickly chanted a wind magic. She barely managed to stop herself from falling and hovered in the air. Mimi, what are you doing? Yuan Bupo saw the attacker clearly. It was Xian Mimi. Yun Sheng was more worried about the puffed egg. It had never been defeated since it was born. Brother Bupo, don't worry about me. Why is Yixia still standing there? Kill this brat. Xian Mimi saw that she had been exposed and decided to shed all pretenses. She hugged Yuan Bupo. Earlier on, she wanted to use Yun Sheng to heal her face. However, now that she was in the Immortal Ju Nation, she did not need to use Yun Sheng anymore as long as she thought of a way to get the life water. She knew very well that Yuan Bupo had fallen in love with Yun Sheng. Other than killing Yun Sheng, there was no other way to get back Yuan Bupo's heart. She did not care about the life water anymore. She only wanted to kill Yun Sheng. Half an hour ago, not long after Yun Sheng and the rest had successfully escaped from prison. After Yuan Bupo had left the prison cell and there was no one else around, the masked female prisoner who had been sitting in the corner of the prison cell opened her eyes. She stood up, took out a ring from her clothes and put it on her finger. If Yun Sheng saw the ring, she would definitely be shocked. That was because she had a similar ring too. It was a beast language ring disguised as a summoner's ring. There were only 2 such rings in the entire mainland. One of them was in Yun Sheng's hand while the other one was in the masked woman's hand. However, the ring in the masked woman's hand looked different from Yun Sheng's. That was because the patterns on her ring were more complicated and mysterious, as if it contained some mysterious power. After the woman wore the ring, she looked different. A silver light flashed and an ochre summoner's robe appeared on the woman's body. There was only one organization in the mainland that owned such a summoner's robe, and that was the Zhao state. The masked female prisoner was from the Zhao state. After waiting for so many years, this moment has finally come. By the order of the Emperor Zhao in red, I shall present a special gift for the Elven Queen's birthday. A magic scepter appeared in the woman's hand. The masked female prisoner walked out of the prison cell and walked towards the deepest part of Icefall City. There were all kinds of prison cells above Icefall City. After passing through a long and narrow staircase, there was an entrance. The entrance was usually sealed with powerful elven magic. Even the elves would be attacked by the powerful elven magic and turned into ashes if they approached it, let alone the prisoners. The masked female prisoner raised her magic scepter high and an ancient chanting sound accompanied by a deep voice. The magic scepter emitted a blood-red glow. Bam! The masked female prisoner slammed her magic scepter down heavily. The magic circle was like a beast that was awakened. Countless magic radiances shot out in all directions and brushed past the masked female prisoner. The magic radiances were like countless elven arrows and scratched the masked female prisoner's clothes. However, she did not let go of her grip and the magic scepter brushed against the magic circle. The magic circle was broken and the scenery around her disappeared. The path under her feet turned into a huge and vast lake. Who would have thought that at the bottom of Icefall City, there was actually a frozen lake? The entire prison cell of Icefall City was built on the ice lake. The magic scepter was pulled out and a cold hole appeared in the lake. The masked female prisoner cut her finger and dripped her blood into the hole. The originally silent hole began to shake violently, as if something was about to break out of the ice. In my name, I summon the 3-winged flying dragon that has been sleeping for hundreds of years. Awaken, evil beast of the ice lake. The masked female prisoner's chanting became faster and faster. A bloody shadow shot into the sky like a cannonball. The masked female prisoner's figure flashed and rushed into the sky together with the red shadow. At this time, Yun Sheng and the others were in a stalemate with Xian Mimi. The elven warriors in the sky had already discovered them. The elves flew towards Yun Sheng and Xian Mimi. They were about to be surrounded and turned into a hornet's nest. Suddenly, the entire bottom of Icefall City shook violently and a terrifying beast's roar came from underground. The expression of the elven warrior captain, who was originally in the sky, immediately changed. Not good, someone opened the seal of the ice lake. All the elves moved in unison as if someone had issued an order in an instant. They rushed towards the seal of Icefall City together. They did not even have time to worry about the people who had broken out of prison. What's that sound? The terrifying beast's roar made the people who were originally fighting stop. They also noticed the elves' strange movements. It seems to be. Wuxia's face was very gloomy. Yunsheng frowned. With her summoner's intuition, Yunsheng could feel the powerful fluctuations of a magic beast. It was an unprecedented bloody, violent and restless fluctuation. It was a magic beast, a very powerful magic beast. Chapter 481. There was no sign of such a powerful magical beast's aura appearing earlier. It suddenly appeared just a moment ago, as if someone had used teleportation magic to lure this magical beast out. But how could such a powerful magical beast suddenly appear in Icefall City where the elves lived? And from the sound, that magical beast seemed to have been released from underground. They had stayed in Icefall City for so long, but they never knew that there was an additional dungeon under the city. Yunsheng's heart was like a drum ringing non-stop. Yuan Bupo and Xian Mimi rarely walked around the continent, but this didn't mean that they didn't know anything. Seeing a red light rushing to the sky from the north, Xian Mimi cried out in alarm, "Blood Cloud Beast!" Her brother Xian Wuji had once raised a Blood Cloud Beast, but it was different from the roaring Blood Cloud Beast under Icefall City. That roar was much more powerful than Xian Wuji's Blood Cloud Beast. "Leave immediately if you don't want to die." Yunsheng didn't want to be entangled anymore. She had also fought against a Blood Cloud Beast before. Even her father Yun Songhai, who was an extremely talented sky magician, could only fight to a draw against a Blood Cloud Beast, let alone her. But it was already too late. Icefall City's walls shook, and a hideous, ugly monster with wings drilled out from the ground like an earthworm. It had wings on its body. Most flying magical beasts had a pair of wings, but this earthworm-like Blood Cloud Beast was completely red. It had a pair of wings on its body, but there was a single wing on its back, just like a fish. 3 wings. It was actually a 3-winged mutated magical beast. The most surprising thing was that there was a person standing on the head of the dragon-like Blood Cloud Beast. His silver hair was fluttering like snow, and his summoner's robe was particularly eye-catching. The summoner's robe was like fire, and it complemented the mutated magical beast perfectly. How could it be her? Yunsheng suddenly opened her eyes wide. It was that masked female prisoner. She's not a warrior, nor is she a magician. She's actually a powerful summoner. It's the Zhao state. That woman is one of the 13 chancellors of the Zhao state. The masked woman had already changed her clothes. Yunsheng didn't recognize it, but Wuxia did. Everyone knew that summoners were divided into Beast Whisperer, Battle Beast Summoner, Scepter Summoner, Wizard Beast Summoner, Saint Beast Summoner, 13 Main Summoners, Ba Huang God Summoner, and the Emperor Zhao in red. Yunsheng's current strength was merely that of a Scepter Summoner. The masked female prisoner's silver hair glowed beautifully under the sunlight. However, the ochre-red summoner robe she was wearing represented the Summoning Emperor, while the ochre-red represented the Summoning Emperor. That robe was so dazzling. In comparison, the dragon-like Blood Cloud Beast under the masked woman did not seem so scary. The Zhao state was located in Penglai. Most warriors and magicians did not know much about Penglai, but this did not prevent them from being afraid of the Zhao state. Because the Zhao state had the most terrifying existence on the mainland, that was, the summoners. Just like the Temple of Dharma had cultivated countless magicians, the source of the summoners on the mainland was the Zhao state. This was not obvious to Yunsheng because the summoners of the Zhao state were too weak. Zhao state had not had a famous summoner on the mainland for many years. In the Zhao state, the ochre robe meant that the summoner was at the level of the summoner. There were only 13 summoners in the Zhao state. Their status was only below that of Emperor Zhao and the legendary Ba Huang God Summoner. Yunsheng looked at the flying demonic beast. It was flying in the air. Judging from its flying posture, it was a mutated demonic beast of the dragon family. It was likely to be a half-formed dragon, a flood dragon among dragons. There were traces of a magic seal under the body of the 3-winged flood dragon. Obviously, it had been imprisoned under the Icefall City. Perhaps this was the real reason for the existence of the Icefall City. Yunsheng's guess was right. The real meaning of the existence of the Icefall City was to suppress the 3-winged flood dragon. Hundreds of years ago, the Icefall City was just a wasteland. An icefall fell from the surrounding ice and snow mountains, forming a huge ice lake. There were many water spirits living around the ice lake. At that time, the immortal Jiu country had not closed its borders. However, no one knew when it started, but an amazing blood cloud floated into the immortal Jiu country and stopped above the lake. By absorbing the spiritual energy around the ice lake, the 3-winged flood dragon was born in the cloud. The 3-winged flood dragon was bloodthirsty and cruel. When it was still a blood cloud, it had already devoured many elven residents living nearby. After it broke out of the cloud, it could fly into the sky and enter the water, becoming a tyrant. The local water spirits had no choice but to ask the elven royal court for help. When the current elven queen, Feng Lan, ascended the throne, she used the elven queen's most powerful ice magic, ice sealing 10,000 miles, to freeze the entire lake. Even the waterfall was frozen and a seal was added on top of it. In order to completely suppress the flood dragon that was frozen under the lake, the elven warriors built a city in this area. Gradually, the current Icefall City came to be. After the masked female prisoner entered the Icefall City, she had been looking for an opportunity to enter the underground lake. She even killed an elven warrior and faced the punishment of being whipped once every 15 days. When she was being punished, she secretly used her divine sense to check the terrain of the city. Finally, she found the real entrance to the ice lake. It was also a coincidence that Yun Xing appeared and used the Dihong Song to restore the magic power of the masked female prisoner, which had been restricted for a while. That was why she was able to break out of prison so smoothly today and unlock the ice dragon's seal again. It turns out that the masked woman is the most cunning one. We have all been used by her. The power of the flood dragon was indeed extraordinary. For some reason, the flood dragon obeyed the orders of the masked female prisoner. It was a water flood dragon that spat out ice arrows from its mouth. As soon as the elves approached, they would all be shot down and turned into ice cubes. In the blink of an eye, the fire dragon had already killed at least 500 to 600 elven warriors. Not only that, but the masked female prisoner also shot out high-level magic from time to time. Almost no elven warrior could get within 1 mile of the flood dragon. The elves who were hit by powerful ice magic had their corpses fall down like hailstones. Even Yun Xing couldn't help but be shocked when she saw the tragic scene. The masked female prisoner on the head of the three-winged flood dragon waved the magic scepter in her hand freely. She was like a goddess of death, killing all life that approached her. Knowing that they were no match for the flood dragon and the masked female prisoner, the elven warriors of the Icefall City didn't have any intention of stopping. That was because the elven warriors were unafraid of death. The 3-day holiday is over and I have to go back to work today. In order to comfort my brittle heart, those of you who are still on holiday and have monthly tickets, remember to spend them. Recently, double the tickets. In the last few days of last month, I was instantly killed and covered in chrysanthemum petals. So miserable. Chapter 482. The appearance of the three-winged magical beast had made the situation in Icefall City even more critical. Brother Bupo, what kind of monster is that? Why is it so much stronger than Brother's blood cloud beast? Shen Mimi's face drained of color when she saw the mountain-sized, three-winged WRM flying through the air. She'd always thought that Shen Wuji's blood cloud beast was the most powerful, but after seeing it today she realized that the WRM was much more powerful. Shen Wuji's is only a blood cloud beast cub, but this one is. Only Yun Sheng was a summoner, and only she could sense the true power of the magical beast. Yun Sheng felt that this magical beast was much stronger than the centipede ant general and Zhong Yi's bat king. It was only slightly inferior to the divine beast and she'd first met. If she guessed correctly, the WRM was at least a peak holy beast. After breaking through the commander rank, it was at least a lord rank magical beast. What was worse was that even the magic sealing arrows that the elves were most adept at wouldn't be of much use against a magical beast of this level. This magical beast could instantly obliterate an army. Icefall City was the most important defensive city on the border of the Immortal Keeper Nation. There weren't any residents living here, but looking at the WRM's momentum, it was actually continuing to move into the Immortal Keeper Nation's territory. Could it be? Yun Sheng was greatly alarmed and looked at the masked female prisoner in the air. High up in the sky, the wind was very strong, and the masked female prisoner's face was covered by the mask. She couldn't see her expression at this moment. Her entire being was ice cold. She was neither happy nor sad, just like a puppet. But without a doubt, everything she did was based on her own will. Could it be that she came to Icefall City and lay dormant for so long to unlock the WRM's seal? Her goal was. Yun Sheng's heart became uneasy. The other party's actions weren't as simple as a prison break. Judging from the current situation, the masked female prisoner's strength was extraordinary. Could it be that the previous torture and coma were all faked? Yun Sheng felt that she'd been deceived. Her concern for the female prisoner was sincere. The masked female prisoner could have escaped at any time, but she didn't. Her purpose was to wait for today. Her goal was to destroy the Immortal Keeper Nation. No, Yunsheng was shocked when she realized this. The immortal abode and Penglai were separated by a sea. For many years the two countries had nothing to do with each other. Due to its geographical location, Penglai had never contacted the other 4 countries and one capital on the mainland. However, this did not mean that Penglai had no ambition. On the contrary, Penglai, which had the powerful background of the Zhao state, was likely to be the most ambitious. She couldn't just sit by and watch the immortal keeper nation be destroyed by this flying dragon and that masked female prisoner. Yunsheng hadn't come to the immortal abode with the intention of killing too many fairies. Her goal was only the water of life. She had a good relationship with Divine Wind, and she had a good impression of the peace-loving fairies. Even when she broke out of prison, she didn't kill the innocent. If the Icefall City was massacred because of her Di Hong song, and the immortal keeper nation suffered heavy casualties on the queen's birthday, Yunsheng didn't want to see that happen. Yunsheng, let's go. I'm afraid that the immortal residence country is going to face a calamity this time. Yuan Bupo could also see that the masked female prisoner and the 3-winged flying dragon were not people that they could stop with their current strength. Perhaps only the city master Di Hong's summoned beast could fight against the 3-winged flying dragon. It was better for them to leave before the flying dragon discovered them. Since they couldn't find the water of life for now, they would think of a way to find it later. It was better than losing their lives. Bo, Yunsheng communicated with Puffed Egg. Can you do it? Dearest master, Puffed Egg is fine, but Bo wants to teach that bad woman a lesson. Puffed Egg complained. It had the Ling Long Beast Tower, so the wound on its wings wasn't serious. However, it would remember the grudge against Xian Mimi in Xiao Hei's book. Then be prepared for a fierce battle. We might die. Yunsheng frowned. Yuan Bupo was about to remind Yunsheng when Yunsheng suddenly jumped. A pair of strange wings appeared on her back, and she was already in mid-air. Yuan Bupo, go to the north of the city. When you see a gap in the city wall, leave immediately. I'm going to stay and help the fairies kill the flying dragon. Yunsheng told Yuan Bupo the way to leave the Icefall City that she saw on the defense map. Before Yuan Bupo could stop her, Yunsheng didn't hesitate and flew toward the fairies. Everyone, don't panic. They saw a fugitive flying toward them instead of running away. The fairies who thought that they were going to be attacked immediately split into 2 groups. One group stopped the flying dragon, while the other aimed their bows at Yunsheng. Their biggest enemy now was the flying dragon. The fairies had already realized that the flying dragon's target was the depths of the immortal keeper nation. They didn't have the time to chase after the fugitives. In fact, more than half of the fairies in the Icefall City had either been devoured by the flying dragon or hit by the red-clothed female summoner's magic. They could only rely on the fairies' fighting spirit and their determination to protect the immortal keeper nation to hold on. You don't have to be afraid. I'm not here to attack you. I'm here to help you. I'm good friends with your Holy Wind King. I was imprisoned because of a misunderstanding. If you don't believe me, you can look at my magic scepter. It has the imprint of the Wind Fairy. Yunsheng raised her magic scepter. There was indeed a strong imprint of the Wind Fairy on the magic scepter. The fairies would only bless those with pure hearts. When the fairies heard that Yunsheng knew the Holy Wind King, they realized that she was indeed different from ordinary humans. She had a very strong fairy aura. This fairy aura was comparable to the nobles of the 4 major fairies. This made the fairies put down their doubts. Among the elves, an elf captain with a bow flew out. He bowed towards Yunsheng and said, "Friend of the Divine Wind King, thank you for your help. However, you should escape. None of us here can stop the 3-winged blood dragon. We've already sent a distress signal to the Elven King Tree. However, even if the Elven King Tree sends reinforcements, they won't be able to reach here before nightfall." Most of the fairies were straightforward. If it was an enemy, it would be an enemy. If it was a friend, it would be completely trustworthy. The captain's meaning was clear. If Yunsheng stayed, she would die. Chapter 483. It was just past noon, and there was still more than 2 hours before evening. They had no chance of winning and could stop the flying dragon. If that's the case, why aren't you running for your lives? Yunsheng looked at the elves worriedly. In the time it took for them to speak, the masked female prisoner released an area of effect lightning spell, killing another dozen elves in an instant. It was as if her magic power was limitless. Another dozen elves were killed in an instant. The masked female prisoner also noticed Yunsheng, but she was expressionless as she continued to release her spell. The flying dragon was still moving forward. Yunsheng had never met such a cold person. It was as if she was born to kill. She did not even blink when she killed the elves who had no grudges against her. That's because we're the guards of Icefall City. This is the entrance to the immortal Jew nation. We're all the Queen's most trusted subjects. That's why we were sent here to guard this place. The Blood Dragon's target is something deep in the immortal Jew nation. Even if we can't stop it, as long as we can resist it for a while, it means that the immortal Jew nation citizens will suffer fewer casualties. That's why we have to defend this place even if we have to bleed to the last drop of blood. That's the duty of an elven warrior, the captain answered firmly. Yun Sheng's blood boiled when she heard that. All right, I'll defend this place with you until the end. As soon as Yun Sheng finished speaking, the 1,000-year-old ice zither in her hand danced in the air. She suddenly sat down with her legs crossed and placed the ice zither on her knees. The strings on the ice zither were still emitting a gentle glow. That was the hair of the masked female prisoner. She did not expect that the ice zither that she had personally taught her to carve would be used in a battle between the two of them today. A sense of bitterness welled up in Yun Sheng's heart. They were enemies, not friends. Since she had already made her decision, then she would help the elves in this battle. Yun Sheng got rid of the distracting thoughts in her mind. Her heart was calm. The moment her fingertips touched the soft ice zither strings, the Di Hong song poured out. As the Di Hong song played, Yuan Bupo, who was on the ground, was stunned. Brother Bupo, let's leave quickly. It's too dangerous here. Xin Mimi pulled Yuan Bupo. That woman is crazy. She likes to kill people in prison. Yun Sheng doesn't want to live, but we still want to live. Xin Mimi's hand was flung away. Yuan Bupo suddenly plucked a leaf from the tree beside him and put it in his mouth. The same melody of the Di Hong song was played from the leaves. When Yun Sheng heard the familiar voice of Yi Di, she was shocked. She lowered her head and saw Yuan Bupo calling out to her from afar. A knowing smile appeared on her face. The sound of the zither and flute mixed together in an unprecedented harmony. Yun Sheng couldn't help but think that it was no wonder that third uncle, Yun Sanglong, was able to rely on his strong willpower to hold on until the very end when he was in a situation where his soldiers and food were exhausted. The elf warriors who were initially pushed back by the flying dragon and were fighting with their last shred of dignity heard the music. They could not help but feel the dissipating magic power in their bodies gathering bit by bit. Elves were a peace-loving people who loved music. Although the Di Hong song was a foreign piece of music, it was an ancient battle song that contained a magical power. With Yun Sheng and Yuan Bupo playing the song together, it had an unprecedented effect. The elf warriors felt a surge of passion in their chests. They raised their hands one after another. Under the command of the elf captain, the elves attacked the flying dragon once again. Release, attack the demon seal. The elf captain shouted. As soon as he gave the order, rows of demon seal arrows were released. They shot towards the flying dragon in a straight line. The flying dragon was stopped by the rain of demon seal arrows. Its body slowed down and its speed slowed down significantly. The masked female prisoner who had been standing on top of the flying dragon's head was slightly moved. She already knew the magical effect of Yun Sheng's song. In addition, there was a young man with her. Although the duo's music and flute were a little uncoordinated in the beginning, they soon cooperated very well. The effect of the Di Hong song was much better than when Yun Sheng played it alone earlier. The elves seemed to have recovered their strength. They seemed to be even stronger than before. Wave after wave of attacks, wave after wave of arrows. The masked female prisoner knew very well that these locust-like elven warriors might really be able to last until the end if they didn't break through immediately. If she waited until the people from the elven palace arrived, she would fail in her real purpose this time. The masked female prisoner was not as dumb as she appeared to be. She glanced around coldly and quickly recognized the culprit who caused the current situation. Yun Sheng. Ever since she joined the elves' camp, the situation had changed. She had to kill that woman. As long as the song was stopped, the elves would be at their wits' end. The masked female prisoner glanced at Yun Sheng. Was she really going to kill that child? For the first time, there was hesitation in the masked female prisoner's heart. She was a killing machine. She would not hesitate in the face of anyone. But at this moment, there was a voice in her heart that was shouting, stopping her from killing that child. The flying dragon below her let out a violent roar. It was pierced by several powerful elf arrows. I can't drag this on any longer. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in the masked female prisoner's eyes. She suddenly started chanting. Boom. A bolt of purple lightning struck towards Yun Sheng. At that moment, Yun Sheng suddenly raised her head. Their gazes met. But just as the lightning was about to hit Yun Sheng, the masked female prisoner's scepter trembled slightly. The lightning moved with incomparable precision. Peng! An elf beside Yun Sheng was hit and immediately fell from the sky. Yun Sheng was shocked. The zither in her hand vibrated. Peng! One of the zither strings broke. The zither string cut her finger. Blood flowed out instantly. Yun Sheng, danger. On the ground, Yuan Bupo raised his head and saw that the masked female summoner was like a ghost. With a teleport, she passed through the layers of defense of the elf warriors and appeared in front of Yun Sheng. Her strength was unfathomable. She was not like an ordinary sorcerer. She raised her hand and blocked Yun Sheng. Then she grabbed Yun Sheng's neck. Her hand was cold. It was 100 times colder than the 1,000-year-old ice in the ice prison. You shouldn't have come back. The masked female prisoner looked at Yun Sheng coldly. Her eyes flashed with a strange emotion. Who are you? Why are you working for the Zhao state? Yun Sheng's throat was choked by her. The masked female prisoner's strength was astonishing. It was hard to imagine that such a frail body could contain such terrifying strength. A dead person doesn't need to know so much. The masked female prisoner's hand had a strong magical wave. She raised her magic scepter and focused her gaze on Yun Sheng's face. Chapter 484. The two of them were so close that the masked female prisoner could clearly see Yun Sheng's pained expression. The masked female prisoner wanted to kill her. However, looking at Yun Sheng's pained expression, the masked female prisoner did not have any extra strength to do so. The voice in her heart was getting louder and louder, causing her head to hurt. Aren't you going to beg for mercy? The masked female prisoner asked dryly. She had killed many people for the Zhao state. Those people would beg for mercy at such a time. Why was she not begging for mercy? She could have used the fact that she had saved her life in the ice prison to beg for mercy. Perhaps she would have let her go if she had begged for mercy. Beg for mercy? If I beg for mercy, will you let me go? Yun Sheng's face had turned purple due to the difficulty of breathing. Yuan Bupo witnessed this scene from the ground, but he could not do anything. Let. Or not. The masked female prisoner seemed to be thinking. Just as she was frowning and thinking, Yun Sheng used the last bit of strength in her hand to grab her mask. The mask was pulled off, and the woman's face was exposed to the sunlight. Just as Yun Sheng was about to see the woman's face clearly, the masked female prisoner waved the magic scepter in her hand subconsciously. She thought that Yun Sheng was going to sneak an attack, and a bolt of lightning struck Yun Sheng's chest, piercing through Yun Sheng's chest. Yun Sheng felt a chill in her body. She widened her eyes in disbelief, and her body fell bit by bit. That face. The masked female prisoner's face was so beautiful that she did not look like a mortal. Even the most beautiful woman in the elf tribe could not compare to her. That face, how could it be her? The moment he saw her face, he was stunned. Yun Sheng's eyes widened and she muttered, "Mother?" In the sky, the silver-haired woman who was so beautiful that she did not look like a mortal was actually Hu Jiuxing, whom Yun Sheng had only met once in her dream. Hu Jiuxing, who was supposed to be dead. She was so beautiful that even though Yun Sheng had only seen her once in her sleep, she would never forget it. No, she couldn't be his mother. Although they had the same face, Yun Sheng couldn't believe that the masked female prisoner was Hu Jiuxing, because the woman's face was cold. There was no love at all. The Hu Jiuxing who sang songs in her sleep and talked to her unborn child was definitely not like this. Or was his father hiding something? Mother wasn't dead. She had become a pawn of the Zhao state. Yun Sheng felt bitter in her heart, but she was afraid that she would not have the chance to ask all these questions. Hu Jiuxing's magic was much more powerful than Yun Sheng had imagined. Under that blow, Yun Sheng could feel that the Dharma soul in her body had been pierced. Her body might be saved with the Shinnong medical bracelet, but her Dharma soul might not be saved. After 1,000 twists and turns, Yun Sheng still couldn't understand how her mother, who should have died long ago, was still alive in this world. No wonder she felt like old friends with her at first sight. No wonder she liked her so much and would treat her. It turned out that she was the woman who gave birth to her but didn't have the chance to raise her. The masked female prisoner stopped raising her magic scepter when she heard the shouts. Her head hurt. It hurts. Not knowing whether it was a headache or heartache, Hu Jiuxing held her head in pain. She wanted to pull Yun Sheng, but her hand only grabbed the corner of Yun Sheng's clothes. Yun Sheng, who was struck by the lightning, fell to the ground without warning like a withered leaf. The flying dragon shook violently and opened its huge mouth, wanting to swallow Yun Sheng. Seeing Hu Jiuxing disappear into the sky, Yunxing only felt a sharp pain in her chest. Her vision turned black and she fell from the sky like a big bird with broken wings. No. Hu Jiuxing looked at the flying dragon with its bloody mouth wide open. Blood gushed out from Yunxing's chest. The young girl's sad eyes made her heart ache. She screamed. Her hand couldn't fall. She looked at the young girl in front of her. That pair of dark eyes, her body was covered in blood, and the magic scepter in her hand was already covered in blood. She was just a master magician. At this moment, her magic power had already been exhausted. But with her stubborn and unyielding gaze, it was as if nothing in the world could stop her. The elves were rushing over. She fell straight down from 1,000 meters in the sky. Yunxing. Yuan Bupo screamed at the top of his lungs. A gray hovering magic array appeared on the magic scepter in her hand. An illusion of an hourglass appeared on the magic circle. In just a moment, Yunxing's falling body and the flying dragon with its mouth wide open stopped at the same time. Advanced time attribute secondary magic, space-time suspension magic. Even Hu Jiuxing didn't understand why she would suddenly do such a thing. How dare you? How dare you disturb my immortal abode? At this critical moment, hundreds of elves appeared in the sky. A green hurricane soared into the sky. The three-winged flood dragon, which was only a few feet away from Yunxing, was hit by the hurricane. Its indestructible flood dragon skin was torn apart by the wind, and a hole was torn open. A gentle breeze blew past. Like a pair of gentle hands, it wrapped Yunxing's body. Yunxing, who had already lost consciousness, was sent into the arms of the person who came like a leaf. Golden hair, blue eyes, a face that was both male and female. Even among the elves it was still so dazzling. Compared to the divine wind from a few years ago, the current divine wind king was a little different. He was still as handsome as ever, but his silhouette was less feminine and more masculine. No one would treat divine wind as a woman anymore. The divine wind king of the immortal abode nation, the king of wind. A demon spirit butterfly fluttered beside divine wind. On his way here, divine wind learned that the magic seal in Icefall City had been broken. There was a group jailbreak in Icefall City. Behind him there were hundreds of elven palace warriors. They held demon sealing bows and aimed at Hu Jiuxing. Divine Wind didn't expect that when he arrived, he would only see Yunxing, who was struck by lightning. The person he had been thinking about for years almost died in front of his eyes. Hu Jiuxing looked at the elven warriors and knew that her mission had failed. She looked at Yunxing, who was in Divine Wind's arms, with a complicated expression. She raised her hand and two space-time magic arrays appeared under her and the flying dragon's feet. Well, even if she didn't find that thing according to her plan, this time she was able to break the seal of the underground flying dragon and snatch a powerful blood cloud beast, which could be considered to have completed her mission. This handsome elven man's magic power was very strong. He must be from the elven palace. That girl should be able to keep her life in his hands. A big stone was put down in her heart. Hu Jiuxing smiled coldly. The space-time magic array enveloped her and the three-winged dragon, and they disappeared in an instant. Chapter 485. Don't chase after a cornered enemy. Reorganize Icefall City immediately and arrest the fugitives, Divine Wind ordered. Icefall City had been destroyed by the three-winged blood dragon. The corpses of the elven warriors were everywhere. He was shocked by the scene. Divine Wind looked at Hu Jiuxing, who had disappeared, with a serious expression. Was it the 13th summon of Peng Lai? Sure enough, Peng Lai could no longer hold back. However, since when did Peng Lai have such a powerful female summoner? Although he had not officially fought with Hu Jiuxing, he was sure that if he fought with that woman rashly, he might not be her opponent. Moreover, she was a summoner who had the ability to expel Lord-level magical beasts. He had to inform the Empress about this and strengthen the security of that place. Humans. Divine Wind led a group of elven warriors and looked down at Yuan Bupo and the others who were standing in the ruins. After experiencing this calamity, the entire Icefall City seemed to have experienced a violent earthquake, and the entire city was in a mess. Most of the fugitives did not escape. The elven warriors also suffered heavy losses. The lucky ones who survived were only Yuan Bupo, Yixia, Shen Mimi, and a few others. Here's a bottle of life water. For little Xinger's sake, I'll give it to you. Immediately scram out of the Immortal Keeper Nation, otherwise. Shen Feng anxiously looked at Yunxing in his arms. If it weren't for the fact that they were Yunxing's friends, he definitely wouldn't have spared a single one of these people who had caused so much damage to Icefall City. However, he had to bring Yun Sheng back to the Elven Palace as soon as possible. The magic of the red-clothed sorceress just now was really powerful. Yun Sheng was seriously injured. In addition, she had been imprisoned in the ice prison for a while and her body was greatly exhausted. Only a large amount of life water could save her. Divine Wind threw the bottle of life water to Yuan Bupo. Yuan Bupo took the bottle of life water but did not leave. "Give Yun Sheng to me." Looking at the dying Yun Sheng in his arms, who was so weak that it seemed like she would disappear with a touch, Xin Feng's heart ached. "Chase these humans out of the immortal residence." Divine Wind raised his head and glanced at Yuan Bupo when he heard the man's painful scream. There was a feeling of enmity between love rivals. He carried Yun Sheng in his arms. He was so gentle that it made people look sideways. It was as if the person in his arms would disappear with a touch. "Hand it to you? Do you have the ability to protect her?" Divine Wind said disdainfully. He immediately left Icefall City with a team of elves. Divine Wind's words sounded sarcastic to Yuan Bupo's ears. However, he could not refute them at all. Indeed, he couldn't save him. Just now, he could only watch as Yun Sheng was injured by the female summoner. If it wasn't for Divine Wind's timely arrival, Yun Sheng would probably be dead by now. He was too useless. If he had learned the entire Dihong song, if little Honglan was a demonic beast that was 100 times more powerful than the flying dragon, then he would have been able to save Yun Sheng today. For the first time, the young Yuan Bupo had such a desire in his heart. He wanted to become stronger. He wanted to become stronger because he wanted to protect someone. He wanted to continuously become stronger. He wanted to become strong enough to protect Yun Sheng. Even if the other party was the Zhao State or the Elven Palace, he had the ability to protect Yun Sheng. Under the guidance of the Elven warriors, Yuan Bupo brought Shen Mimi out of the immortal residence nation. Everyone knew that elves liked to live in the forest. However, few people knew that the Elven Palace, where the royal family of the elves lived, was located on a king tree. There was a palace on the king tree. The leaves were its natural cover. The Elven Queen lived here. When the Elven Queen saw Divine Wind rushing back like a whirlwind, she felt helpless. She had only raised one son, Divine Wind. This child was born with an unpredictable personality. He was also her only heir to the throne. Unfortunately, this child was unwilling to inherit the throne. When she saw that the Holy Wind King was carrying a severely injured human girl in his arms, the Elf Queen showed some displeasure. The Elven Queen's beauty was unparalleled. She had the clearest blue eyes in the world. Her golden hair was more dazzling than the brightest gold. Divine Wind had inherited her looks. She had never seen Divine Wind with such an expression. His eyes were fixed on the girl in his arms. He could not take his eyes off her. After the three-winged blood dragon's rampage, the entire Icefall City seemed to have gone through a catastrophe. There were broken walls and wreckage everywhere. Countless great elven warriors had died on the spot. The Elven Queen already knew about this. She even knew that the cause of this catastrophe was partly because of the girl in Divine Wind's arms. Divine Wind, you've crossed the line. How could you bring a human back? The Elven Queen did not wait for Divine Wind to speak. Divine Wind, as an elf king, had left without permission on the Queen's birthday. If this matter was known by other clansmen, it would definitely lead to criticism. Mother Empress, this child begs you to save her. Divine Wind had been frantically rushing all the way. He did not even hesitate to use his wind wings. He was afraid that if he was a second late, Yun Sheng would die. The Elven Queen stepped forward and glanced at Yun Sheng. When she saw Yun Sheng's appearance, the Elven Queen's expression changed. She held Yun Sheng's hand again. "I can't save her." "What?" "Mother Empress, although she is a human, can't you see that she has the brand of elven hellfire on her body? She also has the Wind Elf Queen's bone staff." Divine Wind pleaded with the Elven Queen. He had never been so humble. In Divine Wind's view, Yun Sheng was an elf. She was not as dirty as the average human. At the moment when the three-winged blood dragon went berserk, she still tried her best to save the elves and half-elves in Icefall City. She was also a doctor who had saved countless lives. Can't you see that she is not an ordinary person? She has the bloodline of the Bahuang clan. The Elven Queen sighed. Her silly son had already fallen in love with this girl. Unexpectedly, this girl turned out to be a descendant of that clan. She was still young, but she was already exuding a charm that ordinary people could not resist. When the bloodline in her body completely recovered, how beautiful would she be? Who knew how many people would shed their blood for her? Bahuang clan. Is it the Bahuang clan that has been expelled from the continent? But Mother Empress, she doesn't look like a member of the Bahuang clan at all. She is the person I cherish the most. You once said that there would be a day when my son would find someone to make me stop. I think I have found that person. The Holy Wind King stared at the little person in his arms. He could feel that as time passed, Yunsheng's life force was fading away. He could not sit back and watch Yunsheng die like this. The Elven Queen shook her head. Divine Wind, you can be willful in the past, but this time the Mother Empress will never agree to it. Mother Empress, what do you want to save her? Xin Feng persisted. He lowered his head to look at Yunsheng, then suddenly knelt down. Mother Empress, this child is willing to become the crown prince and help you manage the immortal abode. This child only begs you to save her life. Chapter 486. The Elven Queen's body could not help but tremble. She looked at Divine Wind in disbelief. Divine Wind was actually willing to give up his freedom and become the Elven Crown Prince for this young lady. In the past few years, no matter how hard she tried to persuade him, Divine Wind did not relent. He wandered around in order to avoid the right to inherit the Elven throne. It seemed like this young lady was really important to him. In the end, the Elven Queen compromised. As a mother, the Elven Queen had no choice but to compromise when faced with the pleading of her only child. Divine Wind, remember your promise today. However, if you want to keep her, you have to promise me one thing. I'll heal her Dharma soul. However, if she wants to stay in the Elf Kingdom, everything about her past must be erased. The Elven Queen stared at Divine Wind. That was her bottom line. Letting a human stay in the immortal residence was against the Elf Kingdom's laws. Queen Mother, you mean? Divine Wind recalled the ancient magic of the elf tribe. He pondered for a moment and looked at Yunsheng, whose face was getting paler. If she woke up and realized that her Dharma soul was damaged, she might not be able to accept it. Erasing Yunsheng's past meant sealing all of her memories. Divine Wind struggled in his heart. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Queen Mother, I'll promise you. You must save her. Under the Elven Queen's command, a few elf palace maids walked out and brought the heavily injured Yunsheng away. Outside the snow forest sea, Yuan Bupo and the others were chased out by the elves. Let me go. Yuan Bupo was like a trapped beast. However, he was exhausted from the battle. He could only watch as Yunsheng was brought away by that strange man. The blond man had a face that was more eye-catching than all the other elves. When he looked at Yunsheng, he had a pained and happy expression. That man must be a very powerful person in the Elf Kingdom. He brought away the heavily injured Yunsheng. He must have a way to save Yunsheng. But Yuan Bupo could not describe the feeling in his heart. He knew that Yunsheng was severely injured after being attacked by the Blood Cloud Beast and the Masked Lady. Without the Immortal Keeper Nation's elf tribe's life elixir that could revive the dead, Yunsheng would be dead for sure. However, if Yunsheng was taken away by the man, who knew when she would come back? What would happen to her? Brother Bupo, shall we go back? Shin Mimi looked at Yuan Bupo unwillingly. She was originally very happy that she had finally gotten out of that damn place. Although her face had not fully recovered, with the water of life, her face was saved. However, it was still better than staying in this place. I'm not leaving. I'm going to wait here for Yunsheng to come out. Yuan Bupo did not leave either. From then on, he stayed outside the Snow Forest Sea and built a straw hut outside the Snow Forest Sea. He had been waiting for the day when Yunsheng would come out of the Snow Forest Sea. Although countless people who passed by this place said that those who entered the Snow Forest Sea would never come out again, Yuan Bupo did not believe him. However, Yuan Bupo didn't believe it. He had been waiting. Similarly, Yi Baiming, who was in Zhou State's heavenly prison, was also waiting. Even though he was locked in the heavenly prison, he was not too anxious. What he was really worried about was Yunsheng, who had disappeared without a trace. He waited for more than 2 months until the examiners from the mainland's elite camp came to Zhou State. Today, the heavenly prison's door finally opened. Without turning his head, Yi Baiming said coldly, I didn't kill Yi Bailian. Behind Yi Baiming was Yi Qingtian, the emperor of Zhou State. Yi Qingtian was a naturally cold man. Yi Baiming did not leave the heavenly prison not because he could not leave. Yi Qingtian actually used Wushuan Limitless School to threaten him. That school, which had once spilled the blood of countless martial practitioners for Zhou State, was actually used by him to restrict his deposed crown prince. Yi Qingtian was also sizing up Yi Baiming. Even though he had been in the heavenly prison for 2 months, Yi Baiming was still the same as usual. He was indifferent, handsome, and like the stars in the night sky. Yi Qingtian did not like Yi Baiming. He had not liked him since he was born. From the age of 3, Yi Baiming did not act like a child. He was overly mature. He did not cry or make a fuss. Even when he had an argument with Yi Balian and was wronged, he only watched from the side. This was because he was too similar to Empress Li. Even though he was blind, he had a pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see through people's thoughts. Yi Qingtian didn't know what to do with that pair of eyes that could never be seen clearly made him feel at a loss. It is no longer important whether you killed him or not. Now that he is dead, Zhou State will have no successor. Yi Qingtian looked around the heavenly prison. Why don't you let me guess? Yi Balian's death was also part of your plan. Or does the temple feel that Yi Balian is no longer suitable to be the crown prince of Zhou State? He is an abandoned son. Yi Baiming looked at the emperor of Zhou State. The man in front of him was so cold that he did not seem human. Yi Balian was once his most beloved son. However, when Yi Balian was no longer of any use, he was mercilessly killed. Chen Lian, should have received instructions from the crown prince. Perhaps she was the one who poisoned Yi Balian. However, Yi Balian had many guards and palace maids by his side. If the emperor of Zhou State did not allow it, his death would not have happened. The emperor of Zhou State's ears turned red. It was obvious that Yi Qingtian had guessed his thoughts. He was furious. He hated Yi Baiming not only because he was that woman's son, but also because Yi Baiming's eyes. Even when he was blind, every time he looked at the emperor of Zhou State, the emperor of Zhou State would have the illusion that he could see through everything. A child that was so intelligent from birth. He was either a demon or a sinner. This was the dirtiest and darkest heavenly prison. However, even in such an environment, Yi Baiming was still untainted. He was neither fast nor slow. It was as if he was not begging for mercy, but was drinking tea and listening to music in an elegantly decorated prison. It was this damned calmness. Yi Qingtian had seen this calmness countless times from Empress Li. That beautiful and intelligent woman. At any time she would never question him, nor would she listen to his every word. That woman who was as calm as ever when she found out that her husband was going to give her away to another man. You still have a son. Imperial concubine Wenren's son may be young, but he was still a descendant of the imperial family. Yes, I still have a son. A son who truly has my blood flowing in his veins. However, he's not strong enough. I need a crown prince who can protect Zhou State. Yi Baiming, I will not kill you. I will even let you enter the elite warrior camp as you wish. However, you must remember that after you complete your studies, you must obtain the halberd of the war god and assist my son to become a powerful country on the continent. Yi Qingtian looked at Yi Baiming. He looked at Yi Baiming darkly. You already knew that you are not my son. Chapter 487. There is no one in this world who would treat their own son like that. You hate me not only because you hate Empress Li but also because you know that I am the child of Empress Li and it. Ah, Yi Qingtian, you really are a joke. As a man you don't want to be cuckolded. You're the only one who's made yourself a cuckold and can't wait to wear it. Yi Baiming looked up and smiled coldly. Shut up. Yi Qingtian threw a punch at Yi Baiming like a madman. Yi Baiming swept his fist away. Yi Qingtian stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Do you agree or not? Yi Qingtian looked at the man in front of him. He had similar features to Empress Li and almost perfect features. However, he didn't inherit any of this from him. What if I don't agree? Yi Baiming found it funny. Even now this man still wanted to threaten him. Didn't he know that he could kill him in an instant? If you don't agree, your fiancé will be in trouble, Yi Qingtian said softly. Yi Baiming's expression changed. However, he quickly returned to normal. Yi Qingtian, you are really old and muddle-headed. Do you think that I care about a woman more than myself? Yi Baiming chuckled. However, there was no warmth in his smile. Yi Baiming, if you didn't care, why did you personally ask for her hand in marriage? If you didn't care, why did you keep sending people to the immortal Ju nation? After she left, your emotions fluctuated easily. No one knows a son better than a father. After all, I have raised you for more than 10 years. Yi Qingtian seemed to have discovered Yi Baiming's secret. He was extremely excited as he stared at Yi Baiming. Yi Baiming's smile slowly disappeared. He always thought that he was the best at hiding his emotions. However, when it came to Yun Sheng, he lost control. So when Qin Lianer told him that she knew about Yun Sheng, he rushed over. He had already lost contact with Yun Sheng for a full 2 months. As the recruitment for the elite camp drew closer and closer, there was still no news from Yun Sheng, who had gone to the immortal Ju nation. Yi Baiming's heart was in his throat. After the last resonance, he could no longer contact Yun Sheng. In the Immortal Keeper Nation where the elves were, there must be something that prevented him from contacting Yunsheng. Even if what you said is true, so what? She's not in Zhou state right now. Your minions aren't strong enough to overturn the Immortal Keeper Nation. Yi Baiming forced a smile. She will come back one day. If I announce her true identity to the outside world at that time, can you guess how her companions, her family, and those so-called hunters will react? I don't think the Zhou state will let her go. It wasn't a coincidence that Yi Qingtian was able to become the emperor of Zhou state. His shrewdness wasn't inferior to Yi Baiming's. He leaned close to Yi Baiming's ear and whispered a sentence. Yi Baiming felt like he was struck by lightning. How about it? I'll keep this secret. You pledge your loyalty to Zhou state's royal family and will always be the northern underworld king. The emperor of Zhou state looked at Yi Baiming with satisfaction. The smile on his face slowly disappeared. He laughed and left the prison. Yi Baiming stood in the prison for an entire night. When the sun rose, Yi Baiming walked out of the prison. Time passed in the blink of an eye. The mainland's magic elite camp selection was held as scheduled. Yunsheng still didn't appear. It was as if she had disappeared. No one knew where she was. Yi Baiming also wanted to go to the immortal residence to find her. However, there was always a voice in his heart that reminded him that Yunsheng would be fine. Their Dharma soul bond became his last bit of consolation. He could sense that she was still alive. As long as she was alive, one day he would find her. Baiming, don't think about it anymore. Go and report to the elite camp first. As long as there's news of Yunsheng, we will inform you. Zhanli finally convinced Yi Baiming. A group of people sent Yi Baiming to the mainland's elite camp. Without Yunsheng, Chen Lian are also successfully passed the selection and entered the mainland's magic elite camp. After the death of Yi Balian, the crown prince of Zhou state, Empress Qi quickly fell out of favor. Wenren imperial concubine was appointed as the Empress. Her 6-year-old son was also appointed as the new crown prince of Zhou state. Time flies. Unknowingly, Yunsheng had disappeared for 3 years. In these 3 years, no one had any news of her. In the past 3 years, Yi Baiming had not returned to Zhou state. The little Ci Entong operated in an orderly manner with the support of Imperial Physician Yao and Dr. Fan. Everything seemed to be the same as usual. Peng Lai, the most mysterious existence among the 5 major countries on the mainland. Unlike the other countries, Peng Lai's territory was not large. It was not a hidden place like the Immortal Residence. Peng Lai was also known as the Sea Country. More than 90% of its territory was the sea. Unlike the other 4 countries, there was no royal family here. The real royal family here was the Zhao state, the leading organization of summoners. After Hu Jiuxing left the Immortal Residence with the Blood Dragon, she rushed back to Peng Lai. Reporting to your holiness, the 9th Lord has been summoned back. A guard dressed as a summoner reported to a man who was reading a scroll. The man raised his head after hearing this. It was a man as warm as the spring breeze. He was wearing a crimson papal robe with 9 dragons entwined on it. He had a papal crown on his forehead. His eyebrows were sword-like and his eyes were as deep as the sea. Looking carefully, this person's appearance was somewhat similar to Xiao Wenshu. But compared with Xiao Wenshu, this person was a little older and made people feel that he was more strict. This person was Pope Ji Feng of the Vatican. He was also the real ruler of Peng Lai. Hu Jiuxing walked in expressionlessly. When she saw the Pope, she knelt on one knee and said, "Your Holiness, I brought back the 3-winged blood dragon." "Jiuxing, you're back. Thank you for your hard work." The man's eyebrows were full of joy. He stepped forward and helped Hu Jiuxing up. Looking at her beautiful face, there was a trace of imperceptible obsession in the man's eyes. "Thank you for your hard work in the past few years." The man held Hu Jiuxing's hand. Hu Jiuxing frowned slightly and pulled her hand away indifferently. The man seemed to be used to her indifference. Although he was a little unhappy in his heart, he didn't say anything. A few years ago, the Zhao state sent Hu Jiuxing as the 9th Lord to sneak into the Immortal Residence country. There were 2 purposes. One was to get the 3-winged blood dragon. "It's my duty. I didn't find the artifact. Please forgive me, Your Holiness." Hu Jiuxing didn't have any extra expression when facing the Pope. "It doesn't matter. It's just a rumor that the Immortal Residence country has the Bahuang artifact. You've done very well to get the blood dragon of the Dragon Clan." Ji Feng sighed inwardly. Hu Jiuxing deserved to have the Bahuang bloodline. He was afraid that only she could tame a warcraft at the Lord level in a short time. "Jiuxing, I missed you very much in the past few years when you were away." Ji Feng's expression changed slightly and looked at Hu Jiuxing. he found that Hu Jiuxing was absent-minded. Chapter 488. Hu Jiuxing was very beautiful. Ji Fang knew this when he saw her for the first time. At that time Hu Jiuxing had just joined the Zhao state. She was just a little scepter summoner, but Ji Fang was the appointed successor of the Pope of Penglai. He fell in love with Hu Jiuxing at first sight. He even ignored everyone's objections and tried his best to promote her. But Hu Jiuxing did not like him at all. Until Hu Jiuxing betrayed the Vatican and Ji Fang ascended to the Pope's throne, his love for Hu Jiuxing did not waver. What made him angry was that Hu Jiuxing, who he regarded as his woman, was with Yun Songhai. Ji Fang ordered for the arrest of Hu Jiuxing and ordered the summoners of the Summon Palace to kill Hu Jiuxing's child and poison Yun Songhai. He even went to great lengths to use that thing to erase Hu Jiuxing's memory and absorb him as the 13th Archbishop of the Summoned Kingdom. But even so, Hu Jiuxing still treated him with the most ordinary attitude of a subordinate to a superior. This made His Holiness Cardinal very displeased. All this time Hu Jiuxing was like a zombie. She did not have any feelings and only followed orders. She did not question any of the orders of the Zhao state. She followed orders to kill people and tame magic beasts without any objection. But this time, Ji Fang found that Hu Jiuxing was a little absent-minded after returning from the immortal residence. She did not seem to be happy that she had obtained a top magic beast like the blood dragon. Your Holiness, if there is nothing else, I will take my leave. Hu Jiuxing ignored Ji Fang. In the Zhao state she had always been a loner. The first person she saw when she opened her eyes was Ji Fang. Ji Fang told her that she was an orphan born in the Zhao state. Due to a mission she lost her memory. From then on she was the 9th cardinal of the Holy See. Hu Jiuxing trusted Ji Fang's words because she could feel that Ji Fang was someone she was familiar with. However, after this mission in the Immortal Keeper Nation she began to have doubts. Was she really born in Zhao state? Why did she have such a strange feeling when she saw the girl from Zhou state named Yun Sheng? She stayed in Icefall City for 3 years. During these 3 years she was just like when she was in the Zhao state. She came and went alone, not interacting with anyone. She secretly observed the terrain of Icefall City and determined the location of the blood dragon. But when she was not careful she was seriously injured by the elves. If it wasn't for Yun Sheng's help at that time, she would probably have died. It was also at that time that she began to notice Yun Sheng. When she first saw that girl she felt that she was different from the rest. She had an impulse to get close to Yun Sheng. That girl obviously liked her very much. When she learned ice sculpture she was very serious. That kind of liking came from the bottom of her heart. When she was short of a few strings, Hu Jiuxing did not hesitate to pluck a few strands of her hair and give them to Yun Sheng. This was a particularly incredible thing for her. When she saw Yun Sheng smile, Hu Jiuxing felt very happy. She was happy. She thought that she would never have this kind of feeling again in her life. Gradually Hu Jiuxing liked the days she spent with Yun Sheng. These days were much better than her days in the Zhao state. Although the Zhao state was luxuriously decorated and she was one of the 13 most respected archbishops in the Zhao state, she never felt happy. In contrast, the days in the ice prison were bitter and simple. But it was such days with Yun Sheng and her music, with no killing, only peace, she felt very happy. However, as the queen's birthday approached, the day when she would break out of prison and release the blood dragon was approaching. Hu Jiuxing began to panic. She knew what it meant to release the blood dragon. But she could not go against the wishes of the Zhao state and the Pope. That day finally came. When she walked into the cell after being punished, she heard Yixia and the others say that they were going to set up Yun Sheng. At that moment she had an impulse to kill all the people in the cell. She wanted to eradicate anyone who could hurt Yun Sheng. But Yun Sheng just sat there. In the state of meditation she looked cleaner than the snow in Icefall City. If she saw her bloody hands she would probably be disappointed. With mixed feelings Hu Jiuxing closed her eyes to rest. They succeeded in breaking out of prison. What made her happy was that when Yun Sheng escaped from the prison she wanted to go with her. She even said that she was welcome to go to the Zhao state. But she refused. She was a killing tool of the Zhao state. Her hands were stained with the blood of countless people. She could not betray the Zhao state. She had thought that the farewell in the prison cell would be the last time the two of them would meet. However, Hu Jiuxing had not expected that she would meet Yun Sheng again so soon, and as an enemy at that. Yun Sheng was an extremely complicated person. She was a doctor. She saved someone who had nothing to do with her, but she also stood on the side of the immortal Jew country. She looked at her with disappointment. Hu Jiuxing smiled bitterly in her heart. This was her true face. According to the Pope's order, after she obtained the blood dragon, she had to find the whereabouts of the Octaterra relic in the immortal Jiu country. But she did not do so. The moment she injured Yun Sheng, Hu Jiuxing felt that her heart was about to be torn apart. That feeling was hard to describe. For a moment, Hu Jiuxing even felt that she was related to Yun Sheng. Especially when Yun Sheng called out "Mother," Hu Jiuxing was completely dumbfounded. Although she did not know if she was really Yun Sheng's mother, she could see from Yun Sheng's eyes that she was not lying. Was she her daughter? Why did no one tell her that she had a daughter? If she had a daughter, then who was her husband? Hu Jiuxing was at a loss. At that moment, she clearly understood that she and Yun Sheng were related in some way. So when Divine Wind appeared, Hu Jiuxing did not care about the elves, including Divine Wind. She did not want to continue fighting and immediately left the immortal Jiu country. The immortal Jiu country had the water of life that could bring the dead back to life. Yun Sheng, who was seriously injured, would definitely be healed there. This relationship was very likely related to her memory loss. She had to thoroughly investigate the relationship between her and Yun Sheng. You can leave first. Ji Fang let Hu Jiuxing rest for a while. After Hu Jiuxing's frail figure disappeared, Ji Fang pondered for a moment. Guards. A guard appeared in front of Ji Fang. Send someone to investigate who the 9th summoner met in the immortal Jiu country. Also, find someone to closely monitor the 9th summoner's every move. Chapter 489. After the guard left, Ji Fang thought to himself. Jiuxing didn't look right. After her memory was sealed by him, she shouldn't remember anything from the past. She was like a walking corpse, with only one thought in her mind, and that was to be loyal to the Zhao state and Emperor Zhao. However, today's Hu Jiuxing was a little different. For the first time, there were emotional fluctuations in her eyes. Ji Fang was afraid to see Hu Jiuxing like this. The only people who could make her feel this way were her closest relatives. But her adoptive parents had died many years ago. Her husband, Yun Songhai, had been poisoned by the beast poison. He should have died a long time ago. As for the baby that Hu Jiuxing had risked her life to give birth to, according to a summoner who had escaped from Yun Songhai's subordinates, the baby was smashed to death right after it was born. So, the only person who could make Hu Jiuxing feel this way was Yun Songhai. Yun Songhai, you're still alive after being hit by the Zhao state's beast blood curse. But this time you won't be able to escape. No one knew what had happened to Hu Jiuxing. Ji Fang believed that even if Yun Songhai was standing in front of her, she wouldn't be able to recognize him. Even if she was his disciple, even if he was a few decades older than her, this didn't stop Ji Fang from admiring Hu Jiuxing. He liked this disciple the most and trained her with all his heart. But he didn't expect that Hu Jiuxing would leave the Zhao state in the end. Ji Fang really wanted to marry Hu Jiuxing, but her identity and bloodline, as well as the fact that they used to be master and disciple, became his biggest shackles. The stubborn old summoners of the Zhao state and the mysterious 8 Baron God summoners would definitely stop him. Helpless, Ji Fang could only accept Hu Jiuxing as the main summoner and make her wear a mask. The news about Yun Songhai soon arrived. Ever since Yun Songhai was poisoned by the beast blood poison, he had disappeared from the world. He used to be the most outstanding magician among the young and middle-aged people in Zhou state. But because of Hu Jiuxing he fell before he could truly rise. Although the Zhao state was only located in Penglai, it had spies all over the continent. However, there was no news about Yun Songhai. Like a stone thrown into the sea, there was no news at all. This was a first for the Zhao state. Naturally, the Pope did not know that after Yun Songhai was poisoned, he had been hiding in Jiaoye village. The Zhao state's claws could not penetrate that small village. Later, when Yun Songhai returned to Yujing City, it was the 6-year-old Yun Sheng who brought him back. The people of the Zhao state had always thought that Hu Jiuxing and Yun Songhai's child had fallen to his death. They did not focus their investigation on a 6-year-old child. Unable to find any news about Yun Songhai, the people of the Zhao state could only focus their attention on the residence of Yun. The results of the investigation shocked Pope Ji Fang. The Yun Manor has gained another martial saint. The most surprising thing was that this had happened in the short span of 3 years. The warrior saint Yun Songlong had just broken through not long ago. It was too much of a coincidence that a new warrior saint had appeared in Zhou state. Moreover, they had all broken through under the most impossible circumstances. The investigation came to a halt in the end. Yun Songlong had joined the Hunters' Union. When the Hunters' Union found out that the Zhao state was investigating their hunters, they intervened. Because of this, all the clues seem to have been cut off. It seems that none of these people could have appeared in the immortal residence to meet Hu Jiusheng. Then why did something happen to Jiusheng? Ji Fang did not understand. Reporting to your holiness, the investigation of the immortal residence nation has been completed. When the Lord Summoner was in the immortal residence nation, she was imprisoned in the women's prison. However, most of the people in the same cell as her were killed when the blood dragon woke up. However, this subordinate heard that a wanted criminal named Wuxia had already escaped. I heard that she is now hiding in the Grand Emperor city. This was all the information the people of the Zhao state could find out. Send someone to the Grand Emperor city. No, I will go personally. Ji Fang's figure flashed and disappeared. The guard of the Zhao state was still a little stunned. The Emperor Zhao had actually come personally. Who was this Wuxia? After Wuxia escaped from the Icefall city, she was brought back to the Grand Emperor city by Xian Mimi's recommendation. Xian Mimi originally wanted to secretly dispose of her, but the mayor of the Grand Emperor city thought that Wuxia's cultivation was not ordinary and that she was a person worth nurturing. Therefore Wuxia remained in the Grand Emperor city. Wuxia was doing quite well in the Grand Emperor city. Today she had just returned to her residence. Suddenly she felt a terrifying pressure in the room. Who is it? Wuxia thought it was her enemy. However, who among her enemies would have the guts to barge into the Grand Emperor city? A man in red appeared in front of Wuxia. He did not want Hu Jiusheng's matter to be exposed. It was better for him to go alone. Wuxia was shocked when she saw the appearance of the person. The man was dressed in red, similar to the costume of the masked female prisoner. She then looked at the crown on his forehead and the noble aura around him. To be able to enter the Grand Emperor city without anyone knowing and to be dressed in a red imperial robe, this person's identity was self-evident. Your Holiness, you are the Emperor Zhao of the Zhao state. Wuxia did not even have the slightest thought of resistance in the face of such a strong person. She hurriedly knelt down. She did not know why the Emperor Zhao, with such a noble status, would come in person. Could it be because of the masked female prisoner? Wuxia broke out in cold sweat. Such an important person only needed a moment to kill her. You're Wuxia. Let me ask you, when you were in the ice prison, did you see the masked female prisoner? Ji Fang did not even bother to look at Wuxia. He was arrogant by nature and was Emperor Zhao. Among the people around him, except for Hu Jiusheng, he had never deliberately tried to curry favor with anyone. Your Holiness, yes. You are talking about the Zhao state's Lord Summoner. I was blind at that time and offended the Lord Summoner. Please spare my life, Your Holiness. Wuxia nodded her head vigorously, afraid of offending the Emperor Zhao. When she was imprisoned, did she come into contact with anyone? The Lord Summoner has always been a quiet person and rarely interacted with others. However, about a month before the Lord Summoner left, a young girl came. She once saved the Lord Summoner who was seriously injured. Since then, the Lord Summoner had a good relationship with her. Wuxia eagerly told Ji Fang everything she knew. A young girl? You said that the two of them had a good relationship. How good is that? Ji Fang knew that Hu Jiusheng would not be close to anyone. Chapter 490. It's hard to say. The bishop doesn't like to talk either. But she taught the girl how to carve a zither. Also, she took a few strands of her hair and gave them to the girl as zither strings. How big was the ice prison? The relationship between Yun Sheng and Hu Jiusheng was well known to all the female prisoners in the cell. What? Is that true? Ji Fang was shocked. Giving her hair to others as zither strings, was this Hu Jiusheng really the Hu Jiusheng he knew? Ji Fang couldn't help but have some doubts. Hu Jiusheng's original form was the 8 desolate celestial fox, one of the highest existences among magical beasts. To magical beasts, their bodies, hair and skin were all precious. Even if it was just a strand of hair, the hair of celestial fox people was like the best beast skin and hair, a good material for refining weapons. If it was someone close to her, Hu Jiusheng would never give her hair away. What's the background of that girl? What's her surname and name? Ji Fang was now certain that it was that unknown girl that caused Hu Jiusheng's abnormality. There are many people in the ice prison. Everyone doesn't know each other's names, but I remember Miss Xian once said that the girl is from Zhou State. I think her name is... Alright, Yun Sheng. Wuxia tried hard to recall. Finally he thought of Yun Sheng's name. Yun Sheng. Surname Yun? How old is the girl this year? What does she look like? I'm not sure about her age, but her appearance is not bad. Wuxia hesitated. Speaking of which, her eyes are very similar to the Red Coat Lord's. Just as Yixia finished speaking, he heard footsteps outside the door. The city lord of Hongdi and Xian Mimi walked in. The Emperor Zhao came to Hongdi City in person and didn't even tell me. You're really treating me as an outsider. The city lord of Hongdi City and the Emperor Zhao in red were both powerful people in the world. The two of them had more or less exchanged blows on different occasions. Moreover, the two of them were also considered top summoners. Although they were not incompatible, why would the Emperor Zhao in red suddenly appear in Hongdi City? The city lord of Hongdi City remained silent. He sensed the Emperor Zhao in red's aura and went straight to Yixia's room. He then followed closely behind. Coincidentally, Xian Mimi had something to discuss with Yixia, so the four of them bumped into each other. Yixia saw the city lord of Hongdi City and heaved a sigh of relief. With the city lord around, the cardinal pontiff would not easily make a move. To be courteous. Emperor Zhao, too. To say too. Although he was Emperor Zhao, he was in someone else's territory. Brother Ji, you look just like when you were younger. I'm envious. The two of them put on a fake smile. City Lord, the Emperor Zhao is here to ask for information. Miss, it's good that you're here. The Emperor Zhao wants to know about Yun Sheng's background. I'm not familiar with Yun Sheng. You should explain it to him. Yixia immediately used Xian Mimi as a shield. She knew that Xian Mimi had always been dissatisfied with Yun Sheng because of Yuan Bu Pa. Naturally, she would use this opportunity to slander her. Yun Sheng? Why is it her again? She's haunting me. Xian Mimi felt disgusted when she heard Yun Sheng's name. It was as if she had swallowed a fly. She originally thought that Yun Sheng had died in the Immortal Ju Nation. Who would have thought that a while ago, he received news that she had left the Immortal Ju Nation and returned to the Great Zhou Empire. Fortunately, Brother Bu Po was in seclusion. Otherwise, he would have gone to look for Yun Sheng immediately after receiving the news. The city lord frowned when he heard Yun Sheng's name. Why was it Yun Sheng again? When Yuan Bu Po was persuaded by his father to return to the city lord, he immediately went to look for the city lord. He immediately mentioned that he wanted to dual cultivate with Yun Sheng. The city lord immediately reprimanded Yuan Bu Po and said that it was ridiculous. The people of the city lord could only dual cultivate with the people of the city lord. Unexpectedly, Yuan Bu Po said that Yun Sheng's Di Hong Song cultivation was far superior to any woman in the city. Even Xian Mimi could not compare to her. The city lord then found out that Yun Sheng had learned the last 3 movements of the Di Hong Song. When the city lord heard the news, his first thought was to kill Yun Sheng immediately. However, Yun Sheng was currently in the Immortal Ju Nation. No matter how long his hands were, they could not reach the Immortal Ju Nation. On second thought, if what Yuan Bu Po said was true and Yun Sheng was really so talented, it was not a big deal for her to dual cultivate with Yuan Bu Po. As long as the two of them played the zither and flute together and broke the prohibition in the Di Hong ancient tomb and obtained the 9th movement of the Di Hong song, the future of the city lord would be completely different. Back then, the city lord of the city lord married Lady Bai in order to obtain the city lord's throne. The two of them had the opportunity to enter the emperor's tomb together. However, the two of them were united because of benefits. When they were dual cultivating, the city lord of the city lord still missed his childhood sweetheart, Lady Ro. As such, the effect of their dual cultivation was naturally greatly reduced. When they were in the emperor's tomb, they only managed to obtain the 7th and 8th movement of the Di Hong song. The 9th movement was still missing. This was considered a sore point of the city lord for many years. He had also asked his daughter Xian Mimi and Yixia before and confirmed that Yun Sheng was indeed talented. Hence, he had a plan in his heart to let Yuan Bu Po and Yun Sheng dual cultivate. If the two of them obtained the 9th movement of the Di Hong song, it would not be too late to make a move. Today the Pope personally asked about Yun Sheng. The city lord of the city lord of the city lord of the city lord naturally became alert. When Xian Mimi heard that the man in front of her who looked younger than her dead brother was the Emperor Zhao in red, she was also shocked. However, the Pope seemed to have a special charm that made people unconsciously let down their guard. Moreover, Yun Sheng was the person that Xian Mimi hated the most. Hence, she decided to tell the Pope everything that she knew. The one called Yun Sheng is just a lowly sorceress. She seduces everyone just because she's a little pretty. She's from the Marshal Saint General's residence of Zhou State and seems to be a hunter. Alright, I heard that she has a master who's on the same level as the Emperor Zhao. However, I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so I don't know if it's true or not. She's from the Marshal Saint General's residence of Zhou State? The Marshal Saint General's residence has 2 sons and 1 daughter. Whose child is she? When he heard that Yun Sheng's surname was Yun, the Pope became alert. When he heard about her age and appearance, he became even more suspicious. She's Yun Songlong's niece. She calls him second uncle. She should be the daughter of the eldest son of the Yun family, Xian Mimi said casually. Yun Songhai's daughter. So she's that B***starred. The Pope was shocked. He never thought that the baby who was born not long ago was still alive. Moreover, more than 10 years had passed and she coincidentally met Hu Jiuxing. Blood ties were thicker than water. Even if Hu Jiuxing did not recognize her immediately, she must have felt that something was amiss. Emperor Zhao's heart was in turmoil. However, he did not show it on his face. Chapter 491. City Lord Di Hong was also sizing up Emperor Zhao Jifang's expression from the side. Thank you, Miss Xian. This young lady, Yun Sheng, is the daughter of an old friend of mine, so I asked a few more questions. Jifang cupped his hands with a casual expression. City Lord, I heard that the eldest son was unfortunately killed. I am very sorry for not coming to offer my condolences in time. Does the City Lord need I's help to severely punish the murderer? Jifang had heard about Shen Wuji, but he only knew that Shen Wuji was killed by someone. The rumor said that it was Yun Songlong of Zhou State who killed him. City Lord Di Hong's expression turned ugly at the mention of old matters. Hearing the Emperor Zhao and Red's question, City Lord Di Hong did not feel happy. Instead, his brows twitched as if someone had touched his sore spot. He was already cursing in his heart. City Lord Di Hong was not someone to be offended. His eldest son's death had always been a thorn in his heart. However, the person who killed Shen Wuji was Yuan Xiaohua, and Yun Sheng had something on City Lord Di Hong. Not only was he unable to take revenge, but he also had no choice but to release the real murderer and let her and Yun Songlong live together. Speaking of this matter, it was quite depressing. Moreover, Madame Bai would occasionally force City Lord Di Hong to take revenge for his son. City Lord Di Hong was extremely depressed when he heard someone mention this matter. Although Shen Wuji was killed by Yuan Xiaohua, the main culprit was Yun Songlong. His beloved daughter, Xian Mimi, had almost died in Icefall City because of Yun Sheng of the Yun residence. With all these new and old grudges added together, City Lord Di Hong would not let it go. Yun Songlong had become a martial saint, so City Lord Di Hong could not do anything for the time being. However, everyone had weaknesses. The Yun residence was now Yun Songlong's greatest weakness. Especially after Yun Sheng's disappearance, City Lord Di Hong no longer had to worry about someone exposing the Bloody Hand Tycoon. He immediately sent people to contact Duke Jiyuan to assassinate the people of the Yun residence. Duke Jiyuan had long wanted to eliminate Yun Ba. Although Yun Ba no longer participated in court affairs on the grounds of illness, his reputation in the army had been resounding for many years, and his prestige far surpassed that of the Marquis of Jiyuan. If the Marquis of Jiyuan truly wanted to replace Yun Ba, the only way was for Yun Ba to die. They had originally thought that the current Yun residence would be very easy to deal with. Who would have thought that the outcome of the matter was far beyond the expectations of the Marquis of Jiyuan and the City Lord of Grand Emperor City. They had sent people a few times, and there was no lack of martial arts grandmasters among them. However, every assassination attempt had ended in failure. It was not that the residence of Yun was heavily guarded, but that there was a mysterious person who had been secretly guarding the residence of Yun. Several times late at night, the assassin had almost succeeded, but at the most critical moment, the mysterious man in black would appear. Uncle Yun hadn't fought with the black-robed man, so he didn't know how frightening the black-robed man's imitation ability was. He also didn't know how frightening the black-robed man was. However, the Marquis of Jiyuan and the City Lord of Grand Emperor City, who had sent the assassins, were about to vomit blood. When they failed the first time, they thought that the assassin was not strong enough, so they sent another assassin who was more skilled. However, he still failed. They still didn't give up and even spent a lot of money to hire a martial arts grandmaster. However, that martial arts grandmaster also died in the end. Of course, the City Lord of Grand Emperor City and the others didn't expect that the few assassins they sent later all failed. Since the martial arts grandmaster's assassination failed, the City Lord of Grand Emperor City simply sent a sorcerer in the city. However, the sorcerer was also killed. Moreover, the other party used sorcery to kill the sorcerer from Grand Emperor City. The Marquis of Jiyuan and the City Lord of Grand Emperor City were shocked. That mysterious person who was hiding in the dark and guarding the residence of Yun couldn't be a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts, right? Where did this abnormal existence come from? He was both a sorcerer and a martial artist. Moreover, that abnormal black-robed man would appear regardless of day or night as long as there was an assassin. It was as if he didn't need to sleep or rest at all. Speaking of which, this matter was the biggest worry of the City Lord of Grand Emperor City. He couldn't possibly let the City Lord of Grand Emperor City go out of his way to assassinate the people of the residents of Yun. It was because of this that this matter had been dragged on. The residents of Yun was still fine until now. After being asked by the Pope and read today, the City Lord of Grand Emperor City couldn't help but think of that matter. He felt even more depressed. "Thank you, Your Holiness. My son brought this upon himself. There's no need to trouble you to do anything." The City Lord of Grand Emperor City suppressed the anger in his heart and acted as if he was sending the guest off. "Wait a moment. I came here today for another matter." The Red Pontiff had come here today to investigate Yun Sheng's identity. The other matter was related to the search for the 8 Barons' divine artifact a few years later. The Zhao state is also participating in the search for the universal magical weapon this time? The City Lord of Grand Emperor City's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Not only the Zhao state but the Hunters' Union and the Temple will also send people to participate. I mean to cooperate with the City Lord of Grand Emperor City so that we can take care of each other. The Emperor Zhao in red, Jifeng, and the City Lord of Grand Emperor City were both powerful people on the mainland who were on the same level as the Emperor Zhao. Naturally, both of them had the intention to snatch the universal magical weapon. "What benefits can we get by cooperating with you?" The City Lord of Grand Emperor City was a little tempted. However, he still couldn't completely trust the Emperor Zhao in red. The search for the universal magical weapon was the result of many years of hard work by countless warriors, magicians and various major forces on the mainland. However, they had never found it. Legend had it that as long as one possessed one of the universal magical weapons and received a response from the universal magical weapon, it would be much easier to find the second one. The benefit is that the chances of the City Lord of Grand Emperor City finding the universal magical weapon will greatly increase. Furthermore, unless the universal magical weapon is the summoning demon's hand or the magical bracelet, the Zhao state won't want any other universal magical weapon. What you need to do is to help us find the summoning demon's hand or the magical bracelet after obtaining the universal magical weapon. Although the universal magical weapon was a universal magical weapon, it wasn't suitable for everyone. Everyone in the Zhao state was a summoner. Summoners could only use the summoning demon's hand or the magical bracelet. If they obtained other universal magical weapons, they wouldn't be of any use to them. Instead, they would attract the envy of others. This was especially true for the summoning demon's hand. It was equivalent to giving the Zhao state another powerful person on the same level as the Emperor Zhao. The Red Pontiff, Jifeng, was a person who calculated everything. Once the universal magical weapon was unearthed, all the major forces on the mainland would definitely fight for it. There were many people, but there were only 8 universal magical weapons. The Zhao state could only use 2 of them. This meant that there was only a 25% chance of obtaining the universal magical weapon. However, even if other universal magical weapons were unearthed, they couldn't easily fall into the hands of others. This was especially true for the Temple of Dharma and the Zhao state. Other than the 3 major forces of the 5 major countries, the Hunters Association and the Temple of Dharma had been developing very well in the past few years. On the other hand, the Zhao state's forces had been stagnant. If the universal magical weapon fell into the hands of any of the major forces, it would be even worse. As long as the summoning demon's hand fell into the hands of the Zhao state would become the most powerful force on the mainland. This was why the Red Pontiff made the decision to cooperate with the City Lord of Grand Emperor City. Chapter 492. Although the City Lord of the Grand Emperor City, Shen Xidian, was an ambitious person, he was fond of grandiose achievements. Furthermore, he was short-sighted and easily manipulated. Furthermore, he currently did not have any children, only a daughter. That was why the red-clothed summoning emperor thought of cooperating with him. Although the City Lord of the Grand Emperor City had some doubts in his heart, when he thought of the 3/4 chance of obtaining the 8 Baron divine artifact, the benefits blinded his thinking ability. In that case, I will make an agreement with the Emperor Zhao. 2 years later, we will work together to search for the 8 Baron divine artifact. The 2 powerhouses at the level of the Emperor Zhao looked at each other and smiled. They raised their palms and clapped to make an agreement. With the 2 of them working together, The search for the 8 Baron Divine Artifact in 2 years was indeed a headache for the major forces. However, there was always an unpredictable part of everything. Whether it was the Pope in red or the City Lord of the Grand Emperor City, they did not expect that 2 of the 8 Baron Divine Artifacts that they coveted had already fallen into the hands of Yun Sheng. After the 2 old foxes reached an agreement, they looked at each other and smiled. The Emperor Zhao in red did not say anything else and immediately disappeared in a wave of magic waves. Father, that person is really the Emperor Zhao in red, but looking at his appearance, why is he so young? Shen Mimi did not regain her senses until the Emperor Zhao in red left. Don't underestimate him. Although this person looks very kind, he is an iron-blooded pope. It is said that in order to compete for the position of pope, he even killed his own son. The city lord of the Grand Emperor City was conceited and ambitious, but even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. Ji Fang was much more vicious than him. Moreover, he had to know from his daughter that there was now a mysterious summoner in the hands of the Zhao state. The other party could even control a lord-level magical beast. The city lord of the Grand Emperor City did not dare to go against the Zhao state. Ji Fang left Penglai with a belly full of worries. He immediately ordered the Zhou State Summoning Office to thoroughly investigate all the summoners registered in Zhou State over the past 10 years. After Ji Fang found out that Yun Sheng was Hu Jiuxing and Yun Songhai's daughter, he was most afraid of Yun Sheng's talent. He was well aware of Hu Jiuxing's talent. She was able to command lord-level magical beasts. Her daughter was a half-magical beast. If she also had the talent to become a summoner, she would be a great threat to the Zhao state. After checking, he found that there was no one called Yun Sheng among the newly registered summoners in Zhou state in the past few years. The Pope was slightly relieved, but he was still not completely at ease. It was very likely that Yun Sheng hadn't registered with the Zhao state yet. After all, Xian Mimi had once said that Yun Sheng seemed to have a master at the level of Emperor Zhao. There weren't many masters at the level of Emperor Zhao on the mainland. Ji Fang knew most of the people there. He had never heard of anyone who had a disciple called Yun Sheng in Zhou state. After all the summoners knew that there hadn't been a decent summoner talent in Zhou state for hundreds of years. That place was simply a desert for summoners. Only a fool would go there to recruit disciples. Where did the saying of a master at the level of Emperor Zhao come from? The most important thing now was to immediately find the whereabouts of Yun Sheng and her father, Yun Songlong. There was no news of Yun Songhai. What puzzled Ji Fang was that although he sent people to look for Yun Songhai's whereabouts, Yun Songhai suddenly disappeared without a trace. As for the girl with the nature of Yun, it was as if she had evaporated into thin air. There was no news at all. Gradually, Ji Fang put this matter to the back of his mind. 3 years later. The water rippled. Under a natural waterfall, the sun was bright and beautiful, and there were all kinds of fragrant flowers blooming everywhere. A woman cupped the water and sprinkled it on her body. The water was bone-chilling. When it fell on the girl's body, it gradually warmed up. It was a beautiful body that made people unable to look away. The girl's appearance was even more beautiful. Her pitch-black eyes were like the purest black in the night sky. Her delicate nose bridge and skin seemed to be made of water. Her long black hair was dripping wet, and her seductive curves sparkled under the water. She was like a mermaid. She stood up from the water. The girl brushed her long black hair behind her back. Miss Yun. Several beautiful elven girls held up a gorgeous elven gauze dress. The elves' craftsmanship was very good. This gauze dress was made of elven cloud gauze, and it was very light on the body. I don't want to wear this. Just give me a set of archery shorts. When the girl saw the gauze dress, her nose wrinkled cutely, and her face was full of disdain. The elven girls giggled. They had already served Miss Yun for 3 years, so they had long understood her temperament. Miss Yun's temper was very good. She was very doted on by the Divine Wind King, but she never became arrogant because of his favor. She was very kind to people and she never beat or scolded the servants. She didn't like any of the various dresses prepared by the Crown Prince. She really pitied the Crown Prince's good intentions. After changing into a short and compact red archery outfit, the young girl was like a deer in the forest. She left the Elven King's royal study room as if she was flying. In the Imperial study, the Divine Wind King was reading a pile of memorials attentively. In these 3 years the Divine Wind King had changed a lot. This could be seen from the way he dressed. His originally untidy long hair was tied behind his head. He was wearing a proper Crown Prince's robe, and his eyebrows were more calm. The unrestrained Divine Wind King of the past seemed to have disappeared. The girl's arms were like two slippery fish, cold and with a hint of the fragrance of plants. She landed on the Divine Wind's shoulder. The girl's dissatisfied complaint sounded in his ears. "Divine Wind, you promised to teach me archery today." The Divine Wind King was originally reading through memorials, but when he heard the footsteps like the wind, he put down his pen. On his handsome face, there was a smile that could drown people. The Divine Wind turned around, grabbed the girl with his arm and pulled her to sit on his lap. Looking at her wet hair, the Divine Wind raised his eyebrows with some dissatisfaction. "Little Xing, how many times have I told you after bathing, dry your hair before coming out?" His hand fell on Yun Xing's hair. A touch of light green wind element at the same time blew Yun Xing's smooth hair dry. After 3 years, his little Xing finally got used to the life in the immortal Jew country. Her body naturally exuded the aura of the elves. Kamikaze looked with satisfaction at the beautiful girl in front of him who was as lively as a wind spirit and had a fiery passion. He begged the Queen Mother to treat Yun Xing's wound, and even used the elven clan's water of life to hide the 8 desolate bloodline in her body, making her a half-elf. He didn't know if it was because of the awakening of the 8 desolate bloodline, or the effect of the water of life, but Yun Xing's appearance became more and more beautiful. Chapter 493. Originally, Yun Xing was full of spiritual energy, but she could only be considered delicate and pretty. But now she possessed the two extremes of water and fire at the same time. Even the most ordinary elven archer uniform couldn't hide her curvaceous figure when worn on her body. Her appearance was 70% enchanting and 30% elegant. Just by looking at her, Shen Feng had a feeling of indulgence. So be it. Let him sink into oblivion. Little Xing already belonged to him alone. Yun Xing was already used to Shen Feng's love. 3 years ago, when she woke up with no memory, the first person she saw was Shen Feng with a pair of dark circles under his eyes. This golden-haired man was her savior. Yun Xing learned his name later. He was called Shen Feng, the imperial heir of the Immortal Keeper country. Shen Feng said that he found her in the periphery of the Snow Forest Sea. Regarding Yun Xing's past, Shen Feng knew nothing. As for the name Yun Xing, it was also given by Shen Feng. Yun Xing's past was a blank sheet of paper. She only knew that she wasn't a member of the elven race. She was a mixed-blood elven. So her appearance was somewhat different from the majority of the elves. Among the elves around her, she was the only one with black hair and black eyes. In the elven royal court, some people were very unfriendly to her. Once Shen Feng found out, he would severely punish those people. Because of this, no one in the elven race dared to bully Yun Xing in front of others. One of the conditions that the Elven Queen agreed to let Yun Xing stay in the Immortal Keeper country was that Shen Feng had to adapt to his status as the crown prince and inherit the elven throne as soon as possible. Another condition was to imprison Yun Xing's magic soul, make her forget everything about her past, and use the water of life to hide her half-magical beast physique. The Elven Queen did this with selfish motives. On one hand, she didn't trust Yun Xing, especially her bloodline and the shocking 5 elemental magic souls. She would never allow any human to pose a threat to the elven race. On the other hand, the Elf Queen was an experienced person. She had long seen that Divine Wind had deep feelings for Yun Xing. But Yun Xing was different. She was shouldering her own destiny. If she woke up, she would definitely leave the immortal abode. With Divine Wind's temperament, he would never stop his beloved woman. This way Divine Wind would be in great pain. As the Empress of Divine Wind, the Elf Queen didn't want Divine Wind to live like a walking corpse in the future. Therefore, with the selfishness of a mother, the Elf Queen imprisoned Yun Xing's magic soul and confiscated everything related to her past. The Orc language ring, the magic scepter, and even the ice harp were all taken away. Just like that, Yun Xing forgot about the past. She had forgotten about her family, her friends, and the countless people who were still waiting for her return outside. Under the protection of the Divine Wind, she was the freest soul in the immortal abode nation. Yun Xing lived very well in the Elven King tree, but she also had a problem. Because she realized that she didn't know any magic. The elves were a race that was very good at magic. Most of the elves here, especially the elven warriors near the royal court, knew several kinds of high-level magic. Looking at all the different types of magic, Yun Xing did not know a single one of them. This made Yun Xing, who was very competitive, very discouraged. Divine Wind also comforted her, saying that she didn't know magic because she had suffered a serious injury and her magic soul was damaged. Yun Xing was depressed for a long time because of this. But later, she accidentally learned that the elves had a kind of magic sealing archery that didn't require magic. After learning the elven archery, she became interested and pestered Divine Wind every 2 to 3 days, saying that she wanted to learn it. Divine Wind couldn't persuade her and finally agreed to teach her the elven archery the day before. After a while, Yunsheng's hair was already dry. Divine Wind put down his government affairs and ordered people to place several targets under the elven king tree. Divine Wind also changed his clothes. Just like Yunsheng, he was dressed as an elven archer. His golden hair was casually tied with a purple jade crystal bone. He was tall and held a high-quality elven bone bow in his hand. Yunsheng stood beside him. The two people, one was graceful and the other was handsome. The flowers around them were like stars. It was like the most beautiful spring picture. Yunsheng listened to Divine Wind's advice and stood like a pine tree. Her feet were slightly wider than her shoulders. She leaned to the side and pointed the elven bone bow in her hand at the target. She took the bow with her left hand and held the bow with her thumb and index finger. Her right hand quickly took the arrow and put her index finger and thumb on the end of the arrow. Her eyebrows twisted and her black pupils slightly shrank. A golden light flashed in her eyes. Her fingertips pulled the bowstring and her waist and arms relaxed. Only the sound of air vibrating could be heard. Yunsheng's thumb and index finger suddenly exerted force. Her body pushed the bow with internal strength. Her forearm tightened and the arrow left the bowstring. The arrow accurately fell on the red center of the target. Divine Wind saw this and put down the bow with a smile. This was Yunsheng's first time practicing archery. Her aim was very good and her arrow was fast and accurate. The bows and arrows of the elves were made of special materials. They were very powerful but they were very light. Even the archers of the elves would need decades of hard work before they could achieve a small success. Yunsheng was indeed very talented in this aspect. Divine Wind, what I want to learn is the demon sealing arrow technique. How long will it take for me to practice archery first? Yunsheng was a little dissatisfied. She practiced archery for a while and some sweat had already appeared on her forehead. The sweat made her body emit a special fragrance. Her whole body was shining. She was so beautiful that people couldn't look at her. What Yunsheng wanted to learn the most was the elven warriors' magic archery. The elven warriors could combine magic and archery. Some elven warriors could even shoot several magic arrows with different magic attributes in one go. Little Shinger, you are too greedy. Divine Wind pinched the tip of Yunsheng's nose in a pampering manner. When she was still a little lowly, Kamikaze had already liked to do that. But when he touched the girl's smooth skin again, a touch of tenderness emerged from the bottom of his heart. But most elves know high-level magic. Only I don't know anything. Yunsheng was tired of practicing and simply sat down, regardless of any ladylike etiquette. It's not a shameful thing to not know high-level magic. With me here you don't need high-level magic. Divine Wind saw her sitting on the ground and also sat down with her. Several female elves next to them looked at them and couldn't help but frown. The crown prince was too casual. It was all Yunsheng's fault. In their view, Yunsheng was completely ignorant of etiquette and led their noble king astray. She was the chief culprit who made their king unwilling to marry. 3 years had passed, and Divine Wind had always been by Yunsheng's side. But, Divine Wind, I always feel that I should learn magic. I've been dreaming recently. Yunsheng still wanted to say something, but Divine Wind covered her mouth. Chapter 494. The man's deep voice carried a bit of helplessness and doting. Yunsheng, your illness hasn't been cured yet. Those are all illusions. Come, I'll take you back to the king tree. In a few days it will be the queen's 500th birthday. During this period I will be very busy. Many of the elf clan's patriarchs and royalty will come to the imperial court. Maybe I won't have time to accompany you during this period. But I promise you, once the birthday is over, I will teach you the real demon sealing arrow technique. Divine Wind's tone was like a husband who was worried about his new wife's loneliness. Just at this time the elf queen walked over from the side. After hearing Divine Wind's words, her expression was a bit strange. Queen Mother. Divine Wind took Yunsheng's hand and led her to bow to the elf queen. Feng, I was looking for you. The birthday banquet is in a few days. The patriarchs of the 4 elven clans have already rushed to the imperial court. You will go and greet them as the Queen Mother. Although the elf queen had accepted that Yunsheng was living in the elf imperial court, she still had some grudges against Yunsheng. The disaster that happened 3 years ago in Icefall City was still vivid in her mind. That was the largest casualty the elf clan had ever suffered since the establishment of the immortal residence country. And all of this was caused by this woman in front of her. After hearing this, Divine Wind somewhat apologetically whispered to Yun Sheng. Yun Sheng blinked, indicating that she understood. Divine Wind could only go and prepare to greet the 4 patriarchs. Yun Sheng bowed and was about to leave. She also knew that the elf queen didn't like her very much. Yun Sheng, this is the female elven official beside me. During this period she will be responsible for teaching you court etiquette. Before Yun Sheng turned around, she was stopped by the elf queen. The 4 elven patriarchs came to the imperial court. As the crown prince, Divine Wind must receive them all the way. This time, the elf queen had already planned to let Divine Wind formally meet the elven patriarchs as the heir. How could Divine Wind not know? So he also proposed that Yun Sheng must accompany him all the way. This was equivalent to announcing to all the elves that the woman beside him was the future elven queen. Although the elf queen was not happy, Yun Sheng had used the water of life to reluctantly become a mixed-blood elf. She was also God Wind's favorite person, so the elf queen could only agree. However, the elf queen was very dissatisfied with Yun Sheng's etiquette. Yun Sheng grew up in Banana Leaf Village and was a typical modern girl in her previous life. Even though she had forgotten her past memories, she was still a wild person deep in her bones. She was like a wild horse in the fairy forest, unruly and unruly. She didn't like dresses, nor did she like to draw her eyebrows or draw her cheeks. Usually this was nothing. Anyway, Divine Wind liked it, so no one could do anything to her. But at the important birthday banquet of the elves, that would not do. The queen of the elves would never allow Yun Sheng to embarrass the royal court. Therefore, she hid it from Divine Wind and chose the most experienced female elf officer by her side to train Yun Sheng. 2 female officers with perfect faces but very serious expressions came over. One on the left and one on the right. They held Yun Sheng like an eagle holding a little chick. In the next few days, Divine Wind was so busy that even his shadow could not be seen. Yun Sheng was trained by the 2 strict female elf officers. From head to toe, even her sitting posture, eyes, speech, dress, hair accessories, and even her fingernails were all picked by them. Those days were simply miserable. These days she couldn't live anymore. Yun Sheng was very depressed. On this day, the 2 female officers brought a list of names early in the morning. Miss Yun, this is the list of the elven patriarchs and their family members who will be coming to the birthday banquet, as well as the names and appearances of the elven royal court's 3rd rank and above officials. You must remember all of them by today. This way you won't be rude at the birthday banquet in 2 days. The female officers had been with Yun Sheng for 3 or 4 days and had a general understanding of her temper. Her appearance was needless to say. Although she looked different from ordinary elves, she had a very special kind of beauty. This kind of beauty with a bit of wildness was probably what attracted the Divine Wind King the most. Although she rejected that set of etiquette, she would still work hard to learn for the sake of the Divine Wind King. Moreover, she was very smart and could understand with just a little bit. There were only things she was not willing to do, there was nothing she could not learn. With such an elven queen, the Divine Wind King's future children would definitely be very smart and beautiful. The female elves nodded in satisfaction. After enduring for 3 days, she still had to endure for 2 more days? Yun Sheng was a bit discouraged when she heard this. She glanced at the thick list of names. 2 female officers, I will definitely remember this list. You have been busy for 2 days, and there are still a lot of things to do in the royal court to prepare for the birthday banquet. Why don't you go and help? I swear, I will definitely obediently record down all the names. Yun Sheng had a pitiful look. The 2 female officers looked at each other and thought that Miss Yun Sheng wouldn't cause any trouble, so they left Yun Sheng at ease and went to help. Once the female elven officers left, Yun Sheng, who had been staring at the roster miserably, immediately took off her cumbersome long dress and changed into an archery suit like a bird that had been released from its cage. She gently jumped out of the window and slipped out of the elven king tree. What greeted her was a wind mixed with the unique fragrance of the primeval forest. Yun Sheng held her bow and looked around for a target. She aimed at a fruit tree full of fruit. With a flick of the tail, the arrowhead brushed past a fruit branch and a fruit fell down. After taking a bite of the sweet fruit, Yun Sheng climbed up the tree and looked around. She hadn't seen Divine Wind for many days. She had lived in the immortal Ju nation for 3 years. Perhaps it was because she had lost her memory, but she didn't feel safe around most of the people around her. Only Divine Wind could make her feel at ease. She had good eyesight. Looking up, she quickly saw a person riding a pure white unicorn in front of her, riding the wind. Looking carefully, it was Divine Wind. Yun Sheng threw the fruit away and rushed towards that person with a whoosh as if she had grown wings. Divine Wind heard a strange fluctuation in the air. Just as he was about to make a move, he realized something and loosened his grip. He stretched out his long arms and hugged Yun Sheng, who was flying towards him. "Little Shenger, be careful." It was very easy to hug the person in his arms. Divine Wind immediately stopped the unicorn beneath him and jumped down with Yun Sheng in his arms. Whoosh! Behind Divine Wind, a few unicorns came like a whirlwind. Leading them were a few elf nobles with outstanding looks and temperaments. Seeing Divine Wind and a mixed-blood girl talking and laughing, the face of the red-clothed girl on the unicorn's back immediately became a little more unfriendly. "Divine Wind King, is this the reason why you rushed back to the palace?" Beside the red-clothed girl, there was a young man with a flame-like handsome face. "I heard that you hid a beauty in the elven palace. Are you talking about her?" Chapter 495. When Divine Wind heard the other party's teasing tone, a rare blush appeared on his face. Yun Sheng also looked behind Divine Wind curiously. She had also heard that in the elf tribe, other than the elf queen, there were 4 elf tribe leaders below her. They were the Fire, Earth, Wind and Water clan leaders. Yun Sheng also remembered that on her must-memorize list, it was written as the chief of the Fire Elves. The chief of the Fire Elves, Huiyu, has a head of fiery red hair, sharp eyebrows, bright eyes and a fiery temper. He is still single and has a younger sister, Huiyaoyao. Most of the elves behind them had red hair and emitted the aura of fire magic elements. Needless to say, they were all from the Fire Elf clan. The Fire Elf clan was passionate and bold, and Huiyu was a typical straightforward person. He was a few years older than Divine Wind and had a good personal relationship with him. He usually spoke without thinking. Divine Wind originally liked to travel. Before he and Huiyu inherited the position of clan leader, the two of them were typical friends. However, since 3 years ago, Divine Wind suddenly changed his mind and decided to inherit the position of crown prince. He almost never left the imperial court. At that time, Huiyu also became the clan leader because of the change in power in the clan. The two of them were busy and did not see each other for many years. He also heard from the imperial court that the reason Divine Wind changed his nature was because of a mixed-blood elf girl. Beauty? She's not worthy. Just as Huiyu finished speaking, the red-haired beauty beside him snorted in disdain. The elf clan had always been beautiful. As elven nobles, Huiyu and Huiyaoyao's appearances were so exquisite that it was as if they had walked out of a painting. Huiyaoyao's figure was hot and she usually dressed boldly. She had a good impression of Divine Wind, so every time she saw him, she would dress up carefully. Although they were in a hurry today, she still wore a close-fitting phoenix feather robe. Her skin was as white as snow and her lips were as red as fire, making men's blood boil. Huiyaoyao boasted that she was one of the top beauties in the immortal Ju nation. Previously, when Divine Wind's gender was still unknown, Huiyaoyao had been chasing after him. Now that he was the crown prince, Divine Wind was even more honorable, so Huiyaoyao was even more determined to get him. The Fire Elves also saw the woman beside the Divine Wind King. She was different from the other elven noblewomen. She wore the most common archer outfit, a pair of worn-out leather boots and a bow on her back. Yun Sheng's hair was stained with a leaf when she was running around the tree. Her appearance was also different from ordinary elves. She had black hair and black eyes. It was obvious that she wasn't a pure elven bloodline. This woman, who looked no different from a wild monkey in the forest, was actually the beauty hidden by the immortal residence's Holy Wind King. Huiyaoyao's jealousy was self-evident. Yun Sheng also heard the unfriendly tone in Huotian's voice. She pretended to ask casually, "Divine Wind, who is she?" "I'm the Immortal Keeper Nation's #1 beauty, Huiyaoyao." Huiyaoyao became even angrier after seeing Shinfeng's indifference. Yun Sheng couldn't help but laugh. Huiyaoyao's face paled. "What are you laughing at? Have you ever seen a more beautiful elf than me? I've seen one before. Divine Wind is better looking than you." Yun Sheng pointed at Divine Wind. Divine Wind's appearance was also at the top of the elf race. His face was originally suitable for both males and females. Back then, for Yun Sheng, he officially changed his gender. If it was before, he could be said to be much more beautiful than Huiyaoyao. Yun Sheng had also sighed with emotion when she saw Divine Wind's face. If a man looked like this, how could the women of the continent live? "If there's anything that Divine Wind is inferior to you, Yunxing glanced at Hui Yaoyao's chest, which was as majestic as a cow's. His chest is a bit flat. Ah. Huiyu was laughing to the point that tears were about to come out. He was lying on the back of his unicorn, not even caring about the dignity of a patriarch. He was laughing so hard that his face was about to cramp. This little woman was too interesting. Divine Wind was flat-chested, flat-chested. Divine Wind also had a strange expression on his face as he looked at Yunxing with a smile that wasn't a smile. Hui Yaoyao was furious. This reckless mixed-blood bastard actually dared to laugh at her. With a whoosh, Hui Yaoyao pulled out a whip and swung it towards Yunxing's face. Hui Yaoyao used a special fire whip that also carried advanced fire magic. If it hit a person, not only would the wound be lacerated, but the wound would also be infected with a fatal fire poison. Hui Yaoyao, this is the Elf Imperial Court. She is my person, you can't be presumptuous. Divine Wind was furious. He closed his 5 fingers and cut the fire whip into several pieces. Divine Wind usually had a good temper, but if someone angered him, their end would not be much better than this fire whip. Huiyu also stopped smiling. He was very clear about Divine Wind's temper. Moreover, Divine Wind's cultivation had improved a lot in the past few years. If he angered him, not to mention Hui Yaoyao, even the entire fire tribe wouldn't be enough for him to vent his anger. Yaoyao, don't be presumptuous. We are here to celebrate the Elf Queen's birthday, not to cause trouble. Huiyu understood that Yunxing was Divine Wind's most important person. He gave his sister a look. She was currently very favored by Divine Wind, but after all, she was just a lowly mixed blood. With such an identity, it was impossible for her to become the Elf Queen. Hui Yaoyao was different. She was a pure blood and came from the oldest Fire Elf clan. She was also the sister of the clan leader. Most of the men and women of this clan were outstanding in appearance and were proficient in fire magic. They were the first vanguard team when the Elf clan was attacked by foreign enemies. Therefore, they had always been highly valued and roped in by the Elf Imperial Court. Several Elven Empresses and Elven Monarchs of the Elven Royal Court were fire elves. If the previous Elven Imperial husband hadn't been chosen by the Elf Queen, the previous Elven Imperial husband would have been someone from the Fire Elf clan. Hui Yaoyao didn't dare to really anger Divine Wind. She glared at Yunxing and resentfully withdrew her hand. After the Fire Elf clan leader arrived, the other 3 Elf clan leaders also arrived one after another. The Elf King tree, which was usually quiet, also became lively. From time to time, all kinds of elves could be seen riding luxurious elven carriages to the Elf Imperial Court. After the incident with the Fire Elf clan, Divine Wind was afraid that these elven nobles would find trouble with Yunxing again. Therefore, he simply let Yunxing stay in the inner palace. 2 days passed like this, and it was the Elf Queen's 500th birthday. Yunxing was pulled up by 2 female elven officials early in the morning. From the day before dawn, they were busy all the way until the sun was high in the sky. Yunxing was dressed from head to toe. Hui Yaoyao's sarcastic words about Yunxing somehow reached the ears of the 2 female officials. They were very dissatisfied with the other party's rudeness. The Fire Elf clan had always been domineering, and that Hui Yaoyao was even more outrageous. How long had she been in the Elf Imperial Court? It was just that the Elven Queen's attitude towards her was slightly better, so she became unbridled. In the past 2 to 3 days she had already beaten and scolded several palace maids. She even used the tone of the future Elven Queen to criticize the palace maids and court officials. In contrast, although Yunxing was a little wild and hard to tame, she was modest and amiable. She got along well with most of the palace's people. The 2 female officials discussed in private. They must suppress Hui Yaoyao's momentum. Didn't she boast of being the Immortal Keeper Nation's #1 beauty? Then they would let her see what was called the Elf Kingdom's #1 beauty. Chapter 496. The female officials did their best to help Yunxing dress up. Yunxing's foundation was already very good. She had fused with the elven hellfire, and her body had been repeatedly cleansed by the water of life. Her face was like fire and her bones were like water. Water was her bones and fire was her appearance. She was a combination of purity and flirtatiousness. Her long hair was woven into exquisite little braids by the female officials' skillful hands. Her forehead hair was tied up high. In order to hide the hellfire brand on her forehead, the female officials even chose an aqua blue elven agate for her. Then she changed into a 100 paces skirt made by the most outstanding elven tailor. When Yunxing finished dressing up, the female officials couldn't help but gasp. "Are you done?" I can't even straighten my back. Yun Xing had been dozing off for a while. When she saw herself in the mirror, she couldn't help but be startled. Her lips were red and her face was like winter snow. There was a slight blush on her face, and the dozens of little braids made her look very lively. Miss Yun, the Divine Wind King will definitely like your current appearance. The female elven officials also had a satisfied look on their faces. Yun Xing and the female officials walked out. On the day of the Imperial Court's birthday banquet, the entire immortal Ju nation celebrated for 10 days. The birthday banquet was set at the crown of the king tree. Countless elves dressed in beautiful clothes had already taken their seats. Divine Wind and the several clan leaders were talking and laughing. Crown Prince, Miss Yun is here, a palace attendant at the side reminded Divine Wind. Divine Wind immediately revealed a smile. He was also dressed in formal attire today. It was an emerald golden prince's robe, and his golden hair was meticulously combed behind his head. His entire person exuded a sense of nobility, completely different from the dissolute soldier of the past. Yun Xing had never appeared in front of so many people since coming to the immortal Ju nation. As soon as she walked into the birthday banquet, all the voices at the banquet disappeared. There was a moment of silence. She couldn't clearly hear what people were saying. She only saw Divine Wind quickly walking over. When Divine Wind saw Yun Xing, there was a trace of amazement in his eyes. Little Xing'er was so beautiful today that he found it difficult to breathe. Divine Wind, is my outfit embarrassing? Why is everyone staring at me? Yun Xing was a little nervous. Shen Feng smiled, his face full of joy. He raised his hand and gently pinched the tip of Yun Xing's nose. Very beautiful. Yun Xing has always been perfect in my heart. With that, he held Yun Xing's hand tightly and led her around to greet the elven nobles and ministers. Hui Yaoyao and Hui Yu stood in a corner of the royal court. When she saw Yun Xing appear, Hui Yaoyao crushed the cup in her hand. Brother, you said that Shen Feng's infatuation with that woman was only temporary. Look at his attitude, he clearly wants to make her his empress. Hui Yu was also a little taken aback. When Yun Xing appeared just now, even he, who was used to seeing all kinds of beautiful elven women, felt that he couldn't take his eyes off her. A mixed-blood elf could actually have such amazing beauty? It was no wonder that Shen Feng, who had always been arrogant, would be so infatuated. It was a pity that she was Shen Feng's woman. Hui Yu was also a little disappointed, but when he saw his sister's angry appearance he persuaded, "What? Our Yao Yao also has a sense of crisis? What are you afraid of? I've already secretly observed her. Although that woman's appearance is not bad, it is said that she doesn't know magic. She also doesn't know any of the skills that the elves are good at. Later, when the queen celebrates her birthday, you just have to use some methods to deliberately make things difficult for her in front of everyone. If she has no skills and doesn't know anything, she will definitely become a big joke. The elf queen is very concerned about her face. She will never agree to such an elf queen." When Hui Yaoyao heard this, her mood immediately improved. She looked at Yun Xing insidiously from behind, thinking, "I'll let you be proud for a little longer. Later I'll make you lose face." Yun Xing accompanied Shen Feng around the birthday banquet. She didn't like this kind of etiquette, but Shen Feng was afraid that she would run away, so he held her hand tightly and didn't let go. She could only accompany him all the way. It wasn't until the ceremony officer in the palace announced the start of the birthday banquet that Yun Xing and Shen Feng sat down together. At the birthday banquet there were all kinds of good wine and delicious fruits. Yun Xing was too lazy to listen to the polite words of the elven nobles and just ate by herself. The elves' winemaking skills were very good. Yun Xing drank the pomegranate wine in the cup. It was sweet and delicious, so she drank a few more cups in a moment of greed. When Shen Feng found out, she had already secretly drunk 4 or 5 pots. This kind of wine seemed sweet, but in fact it was very strong. Shen Feng was so scared that he immediately took the wine pot away. Yun Xing burped and her cheeks flushed red. She felt that the atmosphere around her was a little strange. There was a provocative voice in her ear. "It's the Elven Queen's birthday. As the Divine Wind King's confidant, did Miss Yun also prepare a birthday gift?" Hui Yaoyao saw that Yun Xing's face was like a peach blossom, and Shen Feng was feeding her fruits from time to help her get rid of the alcohol. That expression and action made Hui Yaoyao clench her teeth so hard that they almost broke. Jealousy grew in her heart like crazy. She had just performed a dance that attracted the cheers of the entire hall. She originally wanted to attract Shen Feng's attention, but who knew that Shen Feng would place all his attention on Yun Xing and didn't pay attention to her dance. This made Hui Yaoyao even more annoyed. Birthday gift? Yun Sheng was still a little absent-minded. The entire immortal Jew country belonged to the Elven Queen. What kind of treasures could she not have? If you don't have a birthday gift, then do you know how to sing and dance? Everyone in the elven race can sing and dance. Wu Yaoyao guessed that Yun Sheng couldn't possibly know how to sing and dance. A lowly mixed-blood elf who didn't know how to do anything, what right did she have to monopolize all of the Divine Wind King's favor? Yun Sheng still didn't say a word. Shen Feng held her hand and felt that her hand was cold. The elven nobles and elven ministers on the side all began to discuss, criticizing Yun Sheng. Just now, when Yun Sheng appeared, her beauty that was different from the fairies had indeed dazzled many people. However, as the confidant of the Holy Wind King, if she didn't have any skills, such a woman would at best be nothing more than a flower vase. The Elven Queen's face was also very dark. She could see that Hu Yaoyao was looking for fault. But if Yun Sheng really wanted to become the Elven Queen in the future, she had to be able to handle any situation. Shen Feng loved her and doted on her, but in the end he couldn't protect her forever. For a woman, especially the mistress of the Elven royal court, just the Emperor's favor wasn't enough to make her stand. Hu Yaoyao, you want to see my skills, right? This king will perform. Shen Feng saw that Yun Sheng's eyes were dim and her long eyelashes were drooping. She looked a little helpless, so he felt very distressed. He squeezed her hand, silently comforting her. Suddenly Yun Sheng pulled her hand back and pressed Shen Feng's hand down. She stood up with a whoosh sound, her black eyes flickering. In order to let Xiao Xing quickly recover her memory, monthly votes are thrown over. Double the last day bird, roar, there will be a surprise with more votes. Everyone remember to check if there are any more monthly votes. That's all, I'm leaving. Good night everyone. Chapter 497. Yun Sheng looked around, and her eyes finally fell on a guqin of the court musician. Her voice was loud and clear. Yun Sheng should perform at the Queen's birthday banquet, so I will play a song. She got up and left the table. Under Divine Wind's worried gaze, she walked to the front seat and sat down. Divine Wind's face was a little surprised. He didn't know that Yun Sheng knew how to play the guqin. At least, Yun Sheng had never played in front of him. After Yun Sheng sat down, her head was still under the influence of the wine and she was a little dizzy. Just now, she didn't know what was going on, but a wave of anger rushed from the bottom of her heart to her head. The words she said and the steps she took seemed to be out of control. When she realized what she had said, she was already in front of a guqin. She knew how to play the guqin? Maybe, probably. Yun Sheng muttered in her heart. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, it was already impossible for her to get away. The guqin was in front, but where was the song? Yun Sheng had stayed in the elf royal court for a long time and had heard countless elven songs, but she didn't like them. Her fingers casually plucked the strings a few times, and there was a burst of buzzing noise, which had no beauty to speak of. Nonsense, Hu Yaoyao said sarcastically. Yun Sheng played a few more times, but it was still messy and silent. On the throne, the elf queen's face was covered with a layer of frost. She was just about to stop Yun Sheng's random actions. Under Yun Sheng's hand, the sound of the guqin changed, and only the sound of the strings vibrated like a dragon's roar. At her fingertips, a zither melody flowed like water. The sound of the guqin was very smooth. It rose and fell, sometimes like the moonlight in a quiet night, slowly pouring down on the ground, sometimes like the spring rain moistening people's hearts, and sometimes the sound of the guqin rose and fell, like the river flowing into the sea. A song, however, was like a person's life, from the beginning to the climax and then to the trough. Even the most picky elven musicians felt that this song was impeccable after listening to it. The elven nobles and elven ministers were all intoxicated as they listened. It was a piece of music with an extraordinary artistic conception. When the soldiers heard it, they felt their blood surging. When the peace-loving people heard it, their hearts were at peace. At the end of the song, Yun Sheng's fingers pressed on the strings. Good. What a great song. Even the Elven Queen couldn't help but stand up and applaud. Is it really a good song? What kind of music is this? Why haven't I heard of it before? Even Huoyu was impressed. Hu Yaoyao clenched her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. But Divine Wind's smile was somewhat forced. He looked at Yun Sheng, watching her blankly lower her head and look at her own hand. Divine Wind remembered that when Yun Sheng was rescued, she was wearing a ring, a magic scepter, and a zither. She really did know how to play the zither, and her zither skills were probably very good. Perhaps her memory of playing the zither had already disappeared, but her fingers and her body still remembered. Could it be that she remembered something because of this zither song? Divine Wind was scared witless. He was even more angry at Hui Yaoyao's provocation. If it weren't for her incessant provocation, how could Yun Sheng remember these things? Your Majesty, Yun Sheng isn't feeling well, so I'll take my leave first. Yun Sheng bowed slightly, then glanced at Divine Wind before getting up and leaving. Divine Wind saw that something was wrong with her and wanted to chase after her, but he was entangled by several elven nobles who came to toast and couldn't get away for a while. Walking out of the lively birthday banquet, Yun Sheng strolled to the top of the elven king tree. Under her feet were dense branches and leaves, and above her head was a sea of stars. Yun Sheng raised her hand and wiped the corners of her eyes. They were already cold. She had cried just now. When she heard the zither music, she unconsciously cried. It was as if she had forgotten something very important. Yun Sheng walked aimlessly around the elven king tree. The birthday banquet was not over yet. Feeling a little tired, she walked back to her palace. Tonight, the defense of her palace was also a little loose. Along the way, she didn't see many palace attendants. They must have gone to entertain the guests at the birthday banquet. When Yun Sheng passed by the elven queen's study, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She let out a soft cry. Just now she seemed to have heard something. It seemed to be the sound of a zither? At this time, why would there be zither music in the imperial study? After hesitating for a moment, Yun Sheng looked around to make sure there was no one around, then quietly walked into the elven queen's imperial study. There was no one in the study. Yun Sheng was wondering where the zither music was coming from. Suddenly she heard a low hum in her ears. She noticed that the zither music was coming from a zither hanging on the wall. It was a unique zither made entirely out of ice. When did the queen collect such a zither? Yun Sheng was suspicious. She thought about it again. She heard from Divine Wind that his father, the former elven king's husband, was a court musician. Because he played a piece of zither, he met the elven queen. Could it be that this zither was left behind by Divine Wind's father? Yun Sheng's fingertips were just about to fall on the zither. What are you doing? The elven queen was standing behind Yun Sheng. Her eyes were cold. Yun Sheng's hand stopped in midair. This zither. When I passed by, I happened to hear the zither music. I was curious and walked in, Yun Sheng said indifferently. The zither was still humming intermittently. Listening to it in the middle of the night, it was like a woman crying in the dark. The elven queen's expression changed slightly. This zither originally belonged to Yun Sheng. When the 1,000-year-old ice zither was sent over, the elven queen saw it and liked it very much. Divine Wind was also worried that Yun Sheng would arouse unnecessary thoughts, so he handed it over to the elven queen for safekeeping. Hanging on the wall, the ice zither had always been used for appreciation. Until tonight, when Yun Sheng played that piece of zither music, the ice zither started humming spontaneously. As if it was predestined, perhaps the ice zither also didn't want to be hung in the study in name only. The elven queen thought in her heart. She struggled for a moment. The zither music you played tonight was very good. As a reward, this zither. I'll give it to you. Although she knew that this zither might evoke some memories of Yun Sheng, the elven queen still decided to follow her heart. Yun Sheng didn't expect that the elven queen, who had never been very friendly to her, would be so generous. She really liked this zither. After thinking about it, Yun Sheng took the zither down. As soon as her hand touched the zither, the low humming sound that was originally like a low hum disappeared. The moment she touched the strings, Yun Sheng felt a strange feeling coming from the palm of her hand. She quickly retracted her hand, and a blurry image appeared in her mind. That image quickly disappeared. Yun Sheng thought that she was still drunk and dizzy. Before the elven queen went back on her words, she took the zither and left. I didn't expect that after so many years, I could still hear the Dihong song in the immortal Jiu country. Seeing that Yun Sheng was already far away with the zither, the elven queen muttered. Chapter 498. What was even more unexpected was that the person who could play the Dihong song to such a degree was not from the Dihong city. The elf queen fell into deep thought. She vaguely remembered when she was not the elf queen yet. She left the immortal Jiu country alone and met a high-spirited youth on the way. It was also a zither. The lingering sound of the zither became her deepest memory in her teenage years. Unfortunately, she was the elf crown prince and shouldered the heavy responsibility of the immortal Jiu country's elves. The youth was the heir of the Dihong city. The two shouldered different missions. After they separated, they were in different places. The lifespan of the human race was limited, while the elves had a long lifespan. In the immortal Jiu country, she heard the news of him marrying a wife, having children, and passing away from the Dihong city. Many years later, she happened to hear a zither song by Divine Wind's father at an elven banquet, which made her recall the friendship of her youth. Well, love is the most misleading word. I hope Feng will not repeat the same mistake. The elf queen returned the 1,000-year-old ice zither to its rightful owner. Part of the reason was that she saw that the other elven nobles were very dissatisfied with Yun Sheng, especially Hui Yao Yao of the Fire Elf clan. Her feelings for Divine Wind were very obvious. After the birthday banquet, the elven nobles would not leave immediately. During the time they were still in the imperial court, they must be strictly on guard against them. Yun Sheng did not have magic to protect her. Perhaps the 1,000-year-old ice zither would give her some help. After Yun Sheng returned to her bedroom with the zither, she was sleepy and tired. She lay on the bed and fell asleep. She did not even have time to put down the zither in her hands. In the dead of night, Divine Wind walked into Yun Sheng's bedroom with tipsy steps. Although the entire imperial court had tacitly agreed that Yun Sheng was his woman, Divine Wind knew in his heart that he and Yun Sheng were innocent. The elf queen had suggested that Divine Wind take Yun Sheng as his concubine first, but Divine Wind was unwilling to submit to Yun Sheng. Moreover, Yun Sheng's amnesia had always been a thorn in his heart. He was worried that Yun Sheng would suddenly remember it one day. She still had a lot of things on her shoulders: family, friends, and the hunting corps. Shen Feng picked up Yun Sheng, placed her on the bed, and pulled up the quilt for her. That ice harp made him cast a sidelong glance. Mother Empress, Shen Feng looked at the zither with a complicated expression. He thought back to when Yun Sheng played the zither, completely forgetting herself. He fell silent for a moment. Forget it, it's just a zither. Shen Feng took off the ornament on Yun Sheng's forehead, untied her braids and let down her hair. Only then did she quietly leave. A few days after the birthday banquet, Yun Sheng's life returned to normal as the elven nobles left one after another. She didn't mention the zither incident at the birthday banquet again, and Kamikaze didn't ask when Yun Sheng learned how to play the zither. Both of them had a tacit understanding not to mention it. Following their agreement, Kamikaze continued to teach Yun Sheng the demon sealing arrow technique. Yun Sheng quickly grasped the gist of it. Yun Sheng, take a rest first. Kamikaze saw that Yun Sheng's progress was very fast. In 3 days she could already shoot more than 5 demon sealing arrows in a row. Yun Sheng was still a bit unwilling, but she resentfully put down the arrow. Kamikaze, so you were here, accompanying the little beauty to shoot arrows. The two siblings Huiyu and Hui Yao Yao walked over. Most of the elven nobles had already left. Only this pair of siblings remained in the royal court. Showy but impractical. Hui Yao Yao had been wanting to drag Kamikaze to play with her for a while now. Who knew that he would always use the excuse of teaching Yun Sheng the demon sealing arrow technique to refuse her. It wasn't easy for her to find out that Kamikaze was teaching Yun Sheng archery in this area, so she persuaded her brother to come with her. Kamikaze, this is your fault. You let the little beauty practice being a dead target here. She will only be able to shoot dead targets for the rest of her life. In my opinion, to truly learn the demon sealing arrow technique, she must practice being a live target. Huiyu saw that Kamikaze was displeased and hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Huiyu, if there's nothing else, you and Hui Yao Yao should return to the Fire Tribe. I heard that the area around the Fire Tribe has not been peaceful recently. How could Kamikaze not hear the provocation in Hui Yao Yao's words? But she was still a guest of the royal court. He couldn't scold her, so he could only send her off. When Hui Yao Yao heard this, she bit her lip and raised her eyebrows at Yun Sheng. Half-blood, do you dare to compete with me in archery? Hui Yao Yao. Kamikaze was furious. Kamikaze, you are overprotective. She can't live under your protection for the rest of her life. Huiyu also didn't understand why Kamikaze was so protective of this half-blood elf girl. Kamikaze's temperament wasn't like this. Kamikaze, they are right. I also want to try archery in combat. Didn't you say that the real warriors of the elf clan have experienced life and death battles? Hui Yao Yao, tell me, how do you want to compete? Yun Sheng also lost her temper. Hui Yao Yao's hostility was inexplicable. She also understood that Kamikaze's protection of her had attracted a lot of criticism from the nobles and ministers of the elf clan. She didn't want to make things difficult for Kamikaze. She wanted to let the elves know that even without Kamikaze's protection, she could still protect herself. Seeing Yun Sheng's eyes full of determination, Kamikaze suddenly felt a headache. Kamikaze only had 1 day and 12 hours left to wander around the little beauty. Even when his friend rarely came, Kamikaze completely ignored him. Huoyu admitted that he was envious and jealous, so he had to make Kamikaze pay more attention to his lover than his friend. Kamikaze glanced at Huoyu with resentment, but the latter shrugged his shoulders, indicating that what he said was the truth. It's very simple. You should have heard that our Fire Elf clan has recently encountered some troubles. An unknown number of night goblins have seized the holy mountain. The night goblins are very good at dark magic, and dark magic happens to be the magic that gives us the most headaches. Therefore, we need the assistance of the elf clan to eliminate that group of night goblins and take back our territory. Whoever kills the most night goblins wins. What Huoyu said was also the matter that gave Huoyu the most headaches recently. No, the night goblins' encampment is very dangerous. Yunxing doesn't know magic, so she can't go in. Kamikaze originally planned to go to the Fire Elf clan after teaching Yunxing the demon-sealing archery. Who knew that Huoyu couldn't wait and proposed it first. Kamikaze, if you are worried, you can protect her. That is a great opportunity, Huoyu teased. Kamikaze glanced at him again. I don't think it's a problem. I heard that night goblins are the best at hiding and flying. Kamikaze, you also know that my eyesight is very good. Now that I have learned the demon-sealing archery, I can use it to restrain the night goblins' dark magic. Although Yunxing didn't know magic, she had also heard that dark magic was the most difficult to master. No wonder the Fire Elf clan was in a terrible fix. Then it's settled. If we lose, both of us have to agree to one condition of the other, Huoyu said confidently. Her attainments in the demon-sealing archery could be ranked in the top 3 of the Fire Elf clan. She didn't believe that with her more than 10 years of elven archery, she wouldn't lose to a half-blood bastard who had only learned archery for a few days. On the last day of the double monthly votes, girls, you have great potential. Keep begging and I'll repay you with more chapters. Chapter 499. In the royal study of the Elven Queen, a few female officials were cleaning the study. One of the female officials accidentally touched a box engraved with beautiful patterns, and the box fell to the ground. Why are you so clumsy? Quickly place the box properly. If the queen sees it, she will definitely scold you, the female official reprimanded. The female official who had slipped up hurriedly placed the box properly. After cleaning the study, the female officials left. The box was still placed properly. In a corner of the study, there was a flash of light in an inconspicuous shabby ring. A magical space appeared in the royal study of the Elven Queen. In the magical space, a chubby pink egg revealed its true appearance. Pop pop, where did my dear master go? The puffed egg was muddle-headed. It remembered that it had fallen into the hands of the Elven Queen. Then the old witch used a special magic seal to imprison it in the orc language ring, causing it to lose contact with its little master. 3 years had passed since then. If the female official had not accidentally smashed the box and broken the magic seal on the box, it would have been trapped in the box for the rest of its life. Pop pop, there is the scent of my little master. The puffed egg was sensitive enough to smell Yunsheng's scent. It carefully hid its body and slipped out of the royal study. After strolling around the Elven King tree, the puffed egg found traces of Yunsheng. It originally wanted to pounce on her and give its little master a longing hug. But it noticed that the Elven Queen, who had sealed it earlier, was sending off the Elven warriors. Its little master was also in the group. Looking at her, it seemed like she did not know anything. The Elven warriors rode on their unicorns and left the Elven King tree. The puffed egg thought for a while and followed behind, tailing Yunxing all the way. The unicorns were very tame, but they were much faster than ordinary magic beasts. Yunxing rode on the unicorns and passed through the clouds. The beautiful scenery of the immortal residence nation was completely seen by her. It's a deal, Yunxing agreed without hesitation. The special thing about the demon-sealing arrow was the demon-sealing magic on the arrow. This kind of magic didn't need to be chanted. It only needed to be smeared on the arrowhead with the blood of the snow wyvern, which was unique to the elves. In order to compete with Huoyu, Yunxing had prepared some devil-sealing arrows. Divine Wind deliberately gave one of his storage rings to Yunxing. Yunxing also placed the Millennium Ice Zither inside. Although it was a trial, she always had a feeling that this trial would not be so simple. Divine Wind reported this matter to the Elf Queen, and the Elf Queen did not have any objections. The Night Goblin clan was getting more and more arrogant these days. It was time for someone to clean them up. Divine Wind and Yun Xing, Huiyu and Hui Yao Yao left the elven royal court and headed towards the Holy Mountain. Their destination this time was a mountain near the Fire Tribe's elves' residence. The name of the valley was the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain. The elves and demons could be considered close relatives. However, the night goblins were different. They were an evil force among the demons. After betraying the demons, they hid in the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain. Huiyu and his sister did not immediately leave like the other nobles. Part of the reason was that the Night Goblin clan was hiding in the Elven Sacred Mountain. In fact, this group of night goblins with less than 1,000 people is very difficult to deal with. We have sent at least 3 groups of elven warriors, but none of them returned. When Huiyu talked about serious matters, he revealed some of the imposing manner of a patriarch. He also explained the situation of the Night Goblin clan to Yun Sheng in detail. The Night Goblin clan was a very special clan. They only appeared at night. Because of their dark blue skin, it was very difficult to find them even when there was moonlight at night. Their appearance was very similar to ordinary elves. However, they were only about 1/10 the size of elves. Most of the night goblins had bat-shaped wings and pointed ears. The most special thing about the Night Goblin clan is their voice. The song of the Night Goblin clan is very confusing and can easily cause people to hallucinate. Huiyu told Yun Xing all the information he knew about the Night Goblin clan. In front is the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain. This mountainous area is also the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain. Usually, other than the few great elven patriarchs, the Elven Queen and the Elven Warriors, outsiders are not allowed to enter. With the help of the unicorn Yun Xing, Divine Wind, and the others rushed to the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain. Yun Xing looked down. The first thing she saw was a fiery red land. Most of the immortal residence countries were emerald green and full of vitality. However, the Fire Elves' Sacred Valley was an anomaly. It was a quiet volcano and a red world. On the periphery of the mountainous area, there were flaming maples. The maple leaves were red like fire all year round. In this mountainous area all the creatures were red. From the leaves to the soil, everything was red. The Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain was already like this when the ancestors of the elves lived here 10,000 years ago. However, it was also this place that was full of the Fire Elves' elements that miraculously gave birth to the most mysterious treasure of the elves, the water of life. In the deepest part of the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain, in the depths of the lava of fire, there was a volcanic crater. In the middle of the volcanic crater, there was a spring that flowed endlessly. That spring was the water of life that could cure all kinds of diseases in the elven tribe. Because the location of the water of life could change at any time, it was very difficult to collect. Even in the Elven King tree, there were only about 10 bottles of water of life all year round. Every year, a few of the most agile warriors of the Fire Elves would die in the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain because they collected the water of life. This was also why the Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain had such a high status among the elves. Therefore, after learning that Yun Xing had taken several bottles of the water of life, the Fire Elves had a lot of opinions about her. These opinions were secretly concealed by Divine Wind, so Yun Xing didn't know about it. The Night Demon clan has 2 most powerful abilities. One is their agility. The Night Demon's agility can be considered first class among the elves. Even I, who have the wind attribute, may not be able to gain an advantage when I encounter the Night Demon Queen. The other is their singing. Their singing can evoke the darkest memories in people's hearts. Remember, once you encounter the Night Demon's singing, you must immediately seal your 5 senses and 6 senses. Divine Wind told Yun Xing all kinds of information about the Night Demons along the way. After Divine Wind finished speaking, he handed a jade bow to Yun Xing. This bow was used when he was young to learn archery. The Fire Elves' Sacred Mountain was a semi-dormant volcano. Looking from afar, Yun Xing could see a mountain about 3 to 4 kilometers above sea level. At the top of the mountain was a volcanic crater. ***** crawl to eat. At around 8 o'clock, there will be a chapter with double monthly votes. Thank you for your support. *****. Chapter 500. From afar, Yun Xing could see a mountain that was about 3 to 4,000 meters above sea level. At the top of the mountain there was a crater. The crater of the volcano was filled with hot magma. The hot environment made people's physical strength deplete faster. Semi-dormant meant that the volcano was likely to erupt at any time. It was also possible that it would be dormant for a long time. However, even the fire elves who had lived beside the elf volcano for a long time could not figure out the pattern of this semi-dormant volcano. According to Huiyu, this semi-dormant volcano had 2 seasons in a year that were relatively safe, spring and autumn. Yun Sheng and the others chose to enter the sacred mountain of the fire elves in autumn. It's daytime now and we haven't seen the night goblins yet. We need to wait until nighttime when the temperature is slightly lower before we set off. Huiyu and Divine Wind each led a team of elven warriors. Even the fire elves felt a little strenuous when they entered the sacred mountain of fire. This also surprised Huiyu, Huiyaoyao and the others. They thought that Yun Sheng, who did not have a magical physique, would not be able to get close to the sacred mountain of the fire elves. However, the truth was the opposite. Yun Sheng was in high spirits all the way. After entering the sacred mountain of the fire elves, she did not even sweat. Looking at her appearance, she did not have any reaction to the high temperature around her. Huiyu could not help but wonder what kind of mixed blood elf Yun Sheng was. Earlier he had also privately probed Divine Wind, but Divine Wind was unwilling to say a word. This, on the contrary, made Yun Sheng's background even more bizarre. Only Divine Wind knew that the reason why Yun Sheng was not afraid of the high temperature of the sacred mountain of the fire elves was because of the Hellfire Elf brand on her forehead. 3 years ago the Elven Queen cured Yun Sheng. However, at the same time she added a seal to the Hellfire Elf brand on Yun Sheng's forehead. It was this seal that sealed all of Yun Sheng's memories and the fact that she had the Hellfire Elf in her body. Yun Sheng only knew that there was a faint red birthmark on her forehead. That was actually the seal of the Elven Hellfire. Yun Sheng and the others waited at the entrance for half a day. It was only when night fell that the two groups of people set off again. Yun Sheng, didn't we agree that it would be a competition between the two of us? You can't be thinking of hiding behind the Divine Wind King the entire time, right? Huiyaoyao saw that the Divine Wind King was always by Yun Sheng's side. Apart from being jealous, she was also secretly annoyed. Divine Wind had always been by Yun Sheng's side, so how could she find an opportunity to strike? Huiyaoyao had already come up with a vicious plan when her elder brother had suggested that the Elven Royal Court go to the Fire Elves' sacred mountain to kill Night Demon. She planned to secretly kill Yun Sheng in the Fire Spirit's sacred mountain. The lava at the volcano of the Fire Spirit's sacred mountain was the hottest lava in the world. Even elves would turn into rotten flesh if they came into contact with it. Okay, the two of us will go forward alone. If we encounter the Night Demon clan, we'll attack. Yun Sheng didn't know that there was a trap. The two of them ignored Divine Wind and Huiyu's obstruction and left the group to go to the place with the most Night Demon clan members. Nonsense. Huiyu had a headache. Divine Wind, you don't have to worry. I'll order a few elven warriors to follow us. It's still early, so there aren't many night demons around. Divine Wind nodded. The temperature at the volcano's crater was very high at night. The red volcano illuminated the surroundings in a red hue. Yun Sheng and Huiyaoyao continued forward. What surprised them was that they didn't encounter many night demons along the way. Even if they did, they would immediately run away when they saw people. The night demons' movement skills were indeed extraordinary. Huiyaoyao chased them all the way, but they still managed to escape. Just as Huiyaoyao was gasping for breath, there was a fluctuation of magic behind her. Yun Sheng saw a magic ripple, and without any hesitation, she knocked an arrow on her bow. A gust of wind blew, and a night goblin hiding nearby was struck by a demon-sealing arrow, revealing his body. It was a blue-green skinned elf. When it was hit by the demon-sealing arrow, its face was full of horror. The demon-sealing arrow had sealed its magic. Filthy night demon. Huiyaoyao was secretly surprised when she saw Yun Sheng's arrow succeed. She didn't expect Yun Sheng's archery skills to be better than hers. She had learned elven archery for so long, so how could she lose to a half-elven mixed blood? The night demon's concealment magic was very powerful. Thinking back to just now, if it wasn't for Yun Sheng's arrow, Huiyaoyao would have been dead by now. Huiyaoyao's life was saved by Yun Sheng. Not only was she not grateful to Yun Sheng, but she was even more jealous. She glared angrily and cast a magic fire scythe in her hand. She viciously slashed down as if venting her anger and chopped off the night demon's head. The night demon's blue blood flowed all over the ground. When it fell into Yun Sheng's eyes, it was a ghastly sight. What are you doing? Yun Sheng didn't expect Huiyaoyao to be so vicious. What are you doing? Didn't we agree that whoever kills the most night demons wins? You only hit it just now. I killed this night demon, Huiyaoyao said rudely. She also noticed that there were a few guards of the Fire Fairy clan following behind them. Huiyaoyao secretly made a signal to them. The guards understood and quietly left. Now only Yun Sheng and Hui Yaoyao were left. The Night Demon clan was also a branch of the elven race, but Hui Yaoyao didn't show them any mercy. This made Yun Sheng see for the first time the cruelty of purebred elves. She had previously thought that all elves were like the divine wind, disliking war and treating people kindly. What? Are you scared? If you're scared, then admit defeat and get out of the elven race. A dirty mixed blood wants to seduce the divine wind. Hui Yaoyao's beautiful face distorted. Her red hair was like the flames of a demon. The outcome is still undecided. Yun Sheng snorted and walked forward with her bow. However, she was already on guard against Hui Yaoyao. Although Yun Sheng was walking in front, she was always careful of Hui Yaoyao behind her. Hui Yaoyao wanted to attack several times, but was discovered by Yun Sheng. Damn mixed blood elf, I'll let you live a little longer. When we reach the crater, I'll definitely make sure you die without a complete corpse. After Hui Yaoyao confirmed that there were no other elves following them, she and Yun Sheng walked along the winding mountain path, looking for the Night Demon clan. As they approached the crater, the temperature in the illusion increased. Soon Yun Sheng and Hui Yaoyao's elven armor was soaked. We haven't seen any night demons along the way. It seems that the killing just now has scared this group of cowardly branch descendants. Let's go to the crater. That should be the gathering place of the Night Demon clan. That's where we'll have the real fight, Hui Yaoyao said hypocritically. Let's wait for the divine wind to come up. The strength of the Night Demon Queen is no small matter. Yun Sheng didn't want to be fooled and stopped halfway up the mountain. Don't you want to see the wonders of the crater? Let me tell you, except for the elven warriors who collect holy water, it's very difficult for outsiders to see the wonders of the crater. Hui Yaoyao continued to persuade. Yun Sheng raised her head and looked at the crater not far away. It was already faintly visible. Suddenly her eyebrows jumped. There was a very strange feeling as if something was calling out to her from the crater. I'm sincerely grateful for today. I'll work hard. Little Yun Yun will soon explode. Chapter 501. Yun Sheng looked down again, but she still didn't see Divine Wind and the others. She thought that as long as she was careful, she wouldn't fall into Hui Yaoyao's trap. The two of them continued to go up. In front of them was a huge volcanic crater the size of a football field. The volcanic crater was filled with flames, but there were no signs of life. It was like a sea of fire, and the dormant lava that had been dormant for a long time was slowly flowing. The most shocking thing about this volcano was that there was a small island in the middle of the volcanic crater. Different from the other places in the Fire Elves' sacred mountain, this small island was actually a glacier island. The island wasn't big, only about 10 square meters in size. A few rugged ice rocks could be vaguely seen on the island, but apart from that there was nothing else. Yun Sheng knew that there was a spring in the middle of the island. The elven race's most precious treasure, the water of life, was obtained from that spring. Yun Sheng was attracted by the picturesque scenery of the lava glacier island. For a moment she forgot that she was traveling with Hui Yaoyao. A sinister smile appeared on Hui Yaoyao's enchanting face. She knew that people who saw the lava glacier island for the first time would show such an infatuated expression. The water of life, the elven race's most precious treasure, was no small matter. Hui Yaoyao took the opportunity to walk behind Yun Sheng. With a sudden push, she pushed Yun Sheng into the boiling lava. Puffed Egg, who had been sneakily following behind Yun Sheng, happened to see this scene. He saw Yun Sheng fall into the lava with his own eyes, and didn't even have time to call for help. Hui Yaoyao had a sinister smile on her face, as if her scheme had succeeded. The lava in the volcanic crater was scorching hot. Hui Yaoyao had once witnessed a brave elven warrior being instantly swallowed by the lava. Yun Sheng was only a half-breed. If she fell into the lava, she would definitely die without a complete corpse. Later, as long as she told Divine Wind that she and Yun Sheng had been separated for a long time, and that Yun Sheng had accidentally fallen into the crater, she believed that no one would suspect her anymore. Yun Sheng was pushed into the volcanic crater, and when her body was engulfed by the lava, an inconspicuous black shadow quickly rushed into the lava. Yun Sheng thought that she was going to die this time. The molten lava of the Fire Elves' sacred mountain would turn even steel into molten iron immediately. Although she was a half-spirit, she was still made of flesh and blood. But when she fell into the rolling lava, she didn't feel the pain and scalding heat that she had expected. She only felt waves of warmth, and she also felt that her body had obtained a mysterious power because of this lava. What's going on? Yun Sheng held her breath and used both her hands and feet to float in the lava as if she was swimming. But this volcanic crater was really too big, and Yun Sheng could only paddle towards the glacier island. Yun Sheng climbed onto the glacier island. Just as she was about to take a closer look at her surroundings, she heard the soft sound of flapping wings above her head. "Pop pop, my dearest master, I finally found you." Yun Sheng steadied herself and looked up. She almost couldn't catch her breath. Her black eyes widened. What kind of monster was that? In the sky, a flying egg was circling around her head. That egg looked very strange. It was pink all over, just like a half-steamed egg. But did an egg have wings? The egg above her head had a pair of rather eye-catching white feathered wings. "What kind of monster are you?" Yun Sheng shivered. The demon sealing bow on her body had melted after falling into the volcanic crater. Now she didn't have any weapons on her. Pop pop. Not a monster. That egg trembled agitatedly, as if it had been greatly humiliated. Immediately tears burst out like a flood. The cries were extremely tragic. Yun Sheng could feel that because of its cries, the magma in the volcano, which was originally considered quiet, was faintly boiling. Damn, what kind of monster was this? Even a half-dormant volcano couldn't stand it anymore. Stop. Yun Sheng's scalp was about to explode from its crying. She didn't know why, but facing such a strange magical beast, Yun Sheng was not afraid. Instead, she felt very close to it. The puffed egg immediately stopped crying. It didn't forget to twitch a few times. Pop Pop is not a monster. Pop Pop is your natal summon beast. You are a summoner. This is Master's beast language ring. Wear it, Master will be able to use the summoner's power. The puffed egg carefully placed the beast language ring on Yun Sheng's hand. When Yun Sheng saw the ring, she felt a sense of familiarity with it. She hesitated for a while, then put on the beast language ring. This feeling is so familiar. Yun Sheng didn't immediately regain her memory. She looked at the puffed egg. Just now, a very special force entered her body. In the beast language ring there was a magic scepter, some other items, and the exquisite pagoda. These things gave Yun Sheng a very familiar feeling. Why is this happening? What exactly am I? Yun Sheng tried hard to think, but her brain was still a mess. She couldn't remember anything. A slight wave of magic made a slight sound. Yun Sheng noticed that there was a wooden box in the ring. It was bouncing around as if it was filled with a living creature. At this time she noticed that there was another box in the ring. It was as if there was a voice in her heart constantly reminding her to open the box. Yun Sheng opened the box. Inside was a skinny hand. The voice came from this hand. In her mind there was a new term, summoning demon hand. Originally, the summoning demon hand would only move when it was being used. However, at this moment, the 5 fingers that were as dry as firewood actually moved. The middle finger slowly raised and pointed to a certain area on Glacier Island. Although it was not close, Yun Sheng could already hear the sound of flowing water. "Little Master, this is the guide of the 8 Barons artifact. There must be a treasure of the 8 Barons artifact level ahead." The puffed egg was very excited. Compared to humans, magical beasts were more sensitive to treasures. When it entered with the beast language ring, it felt a very strong life force. This life force was even stronger than the purest water of life. Yun Sheng hesitated for a moment. She realized that she must have forgotten something. This body of hers did not seem to be afraid of lava. Perhaps the location of the water of life, which was very dangerous even to the fire elves, was an opportunity for her. Yun Sheng put on the beast language ring and swam towards the depths of the volcano with the puffed egg. For some reason, Yun Sheng felt that the temperature of the lava around her was getting higher and higher. Her forehead started to sweat. The elven armor on her body couldn't withstand the temperature and was burned into rags. Her body suddenly felt cold. The temperature seemed to have dropped. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.